The Journey of the Mechas. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 176 Going the Other Way. Yang Mu turned off the mech, unfastened the safety buckle on his body, twisted the door of the cockpit, and finally got out of it after a sound. The mewling mech was now lying on the ground in its unfolded form. The mech was in a very bad state. The whole mech was smoking, and the appearance of the mech was seriously damaged. There were many scratches on it, especially in one place. The whole piece of armor was missing. The fallen piece of armor appeared not far from the mewling mech. Gao Yu and Yan Shenfu quickly came to Yang Mu's side. Seeing that Yang Mu came out of the mech intact, both of them breathed a sigh of relief. Taking off the holographic helmet, Yang Mu shook his dizzy head, and at this time he saw Gao Yu and Yan Shenfu standing next to him. "Are you okay?" "Yang Mu," Gao Yu asked immediately, and Yan Shenfu also walked up to look at Yang Mu with concern. Yang Mu nodded, indicating that he was fine, and then walked to the side of the fallen armor, picked it up, and handed it to Yan Shenfu. "Mr. Yan, this design of mine shouldn't have had this kind of problem." Yang Mu tried to explain the accident, but Gao Yu, who was standing on the mecha to check the situation, spoke up. "It's not the armor itself, it's the spring damping system inside. All 4 springs are broken." Gao Yu said this, and took out a broken spring component from it, and walked over to hand it to Yan Shenfu. Yan Shenfu took the spring component seriously and carefully examined the entire component. Yang Mu didn't say anything, just stood by and looked at Yan Shenfu. "It seems that I was too impatient. It was risky to let you test such an action just now," Yan Shenfu sighed and said to Yang Mu after carefully checking it for a while. Originally, in Yan Shenfu's opinion, he had checked many data of this mecha before, and was able to confirm that it had good operability, and Yan Shenfu also had absolute trust in Gao Yu's craftsmanship in making mechas. During the entire debugging process, both the mecha and Yang Mu performed very well. In the process, Yan Shenfu saw something that surprised him. That is, I never expected that Yang Mu's mecha driving skills would be so proficient, and all kinds of movements were extremely high level, not inferior to those mecha veterans at all. Originally, Yan Shenfu thought that although Yang Mu's grade in the college's grades was excellent, but this was after all in school, and no matter how he looked at it, he could not compare to those real mecha testers. He asked him to come here to be the driver because he wanted him, the designer, to experience his design works in person and learn some lessons. But when he saw Yang Mu doing standard movements one after another, Yan Shenfu refreshed his understanding of Yang Mu. And it was for this reason that Yan Shenfu made a relatively risky decision under the dual appreciation of the mecha and Yang Mu, and let Yang Mu drive the entire mecha for intense sports tests. Yan Shenfu's decision was very impulsive, but the performance of the mecha was still very good afterwards, and Yan Shenfu was also very happy. But at this last moment, the mecha suddenly had a problem, which made Yan Shenfu also worried. When he rushed over and found that Yang Mu was fine, he was relieved. It seems that this mecha needs to be carefully improved. But now the cause of this accident is actually due to the breakage of a spring. "How are the other shock-absorbing springs?" Yan Shenfu asked Gao Yu, trying to analyze the whole problem carefully. "Everything else is fine, just this one, but these springs are of the same specification. Could it be because of uneven force?" Gao Yu carefully analyzed the situation, and Yang Mu also lowered his head to think about the cause of the accident. Yan Shenfu took it and looked at it again, then shook his head and said, "It should be that the toughness of this special steel is not very uniform, and the steel used in this spring has certain flaws." Yan Shenfu said his guess, and Yang Mu and Gao Yu both looked up at him, without any idea of refutation. "The laboratory is now studying a new material, and next time we will use that material to make this shock-absorbing spring," Yan Shenfu said. At this time, the sound of a vehicle came from not far away. Yang Mu looked over and saw that it was the rescue vehicle of the college coming over, and it seemed to come to deal with the embarrassing scene here. "Okay, take this thing back and reassemble it, and then take it to Su Shaoking to test various data." Yan Shenfu also saw the vehicle coming, turned his head and said to Gao Yu beside him. Seeing that these things had been arranged, Yang Mu was about to go back and take off his combat uniform. At this time, Yan Shenfu, who was standing next to him, called Yang Mu. "Do you have time? Go for a walk now." Yan Shenfu said to Yang Mu. Yang Mu was stunned for a moment, looked at the weather that was not completely dark yet, and nodded. Gao Yu and the staff who came to help were busy recovering the Mulan mecha, and Yang Mu and Yan Shenfu walked to the other side of the shooting range. Yang Mu followed Yan Shenfu in small steps, and Yan Shenfu asked Yang Mu about his winter vacation life from time to time, especially about his part-time job at the Halen Science and Technology Museum. Yang Mu answered one by one. I heard that you named this special mecha, called Mulan. After chatting for a while, Yan Shenfu finally talked about the things he was interested in. Yang Mu did not hesitate and explained, this is what Mr. Gao named it. I think it is very good, so I accepted it. Yan Shenfu listened to Yang Mu's explanation and nodded, and continued to say, this mecha is pretty good. Now that you see the real mecha, what do you think? Yang Mu smiled and said, thank you for your help, Mr. Yan, so that my design can be presented on the drawing so quickly. Humph, you don't need to say such polite words to me, but the old man still wants to tell you something. Yang Mu looked up at Yan Shenfu, whose tone was gradually changing, and immediately put away the smile on his face and looked at Yan Shenfu with a humble look. Yan Shenfu sighed deeply, looked at the sun that was about to fall on the mountainside, and said, PAJR has been established for 1,000 years. It is the efforts of generations of ancestors that have such a vast territory, a large population, and the strongest national strength. Yang Mu felt a little surprised by the incoherent opening, but he still listened carefully. Let me ask you a question. Do you know the foundation of our country? Yan Shenfu turned his head and asked Yang Mu. Hard-working and brave, pioneering and enterprising, and respect for heroes, Yang Mu said calmly. Yan Shenfu nodded, indicating that he agreed, still looking into the distance. Yes, for generations, we have relied on this thing that has settled in our bones to get to where we are today step by step. We are down to earth, follow the rules, and take steady steps to get to where we are today. When he said this, Yan Shenfu suddenly stopped, and stood in front of the stone that Yang Mu had just broken, and bent down to pick up a piece of broken stone from the ground, and then played with it in his hands. Although Mu Long is strong, our enemy is not this hard stone, but a cunning enemy. At this point, Yang Mu looked up at the stone in Yan Shenfu's hand, but gradually understood the meaning of Yan Shenfu's words. To a certain extent, Yan Shenfu was still denying the usefulness of the Mu Long mecha, or in other words, he was trying to correct Yang Mu's design concept for the mecha. With the development of the times, the sophistication of mechas determines whether they can win in wars, and the enemy of mechas is only one, that is the enemy's mecha. Another mecha controlled by humans. This is still a battle for everyone. After thousands of years of development and technological advancement, humans have become the undisputed overlord of the entire galaxy. In the eyes of humans, the only ones who can truly defeat humans are humans themselves. However, as the successor trained by Yan Shenfu, if he does not design more sophisticated combat mechas, but some mechas that are useless in wars, then it will run counter to the times and Yan Shenfu's wishes again. Chapter 177 Letting Go. Yan Shenfu finished speaking, but Yang Mu stood there without answering. It seemed that he saw Yang Mu thinking about something, so Yan Shenfu decided to work harder so that Yang Mu could have a clearer understanding. Yang Mu, you have talent, but the road to mecha design is long, and it is difficult to let things take their own course. If you don't have a good start, at this point, Yan Shenfu stopped talking because Yang Mu had already raised his head. Old Yan, I understand what you mean. Hearing Yang Mu's words, Yan Shenfu showed a gratified expression, but Yang Mu continued to speak at this time. Old Yan, can I ask a question? Yang Mu looked straight at Yan Shenfu and said with a serious expression, has mankind been able to completely control everything today? A word that was completely inconsistent with Yang Mu's identity was said at this time. Yan Shenfu was stunned for a moment, but still said, humans are very weak. In the long process of exploration, humans have indeed suffered heavy losses, but we humans have one characteristic, that is, smart intelligence. Yan Shenfu stretched out his finger and pointed to his head. We used our wisdom to create all kinds of powerful weapons, and then relied on these things to become the overlord step by step. I dare not say that humans can completely control everything, but at least now, nothing is blocking our development. Yan Shenfu's tone was firm, as if he was stating an unshakable fact. Yang Mu lowered his head, his face still expressionless, just bent down, picked up a stone, and then played with it silently. Mr. Yan, you are right, this is what I firmly believed before, But Yang Mu thought of what would happen 20 years later and changed his tone. But since half a year ago, when I came back from Hades, I had some other ideas. There are all kinds of giant beasts living there. Those giant beasts can easily put us in desperate situations when driving mechas, and can also easily tear us apart and take our lives. When the sense of crisis that covered the sky and the sun came, I had other ideas. Our current enemy is indeed not this stone, but us who are also human beings. But the universe is so vast, can we really dominate forever if we live in a corner? The heavy tone revealed Yang Mu's state of mind at the moment, and the completely different temperament also surprised Yan Shenfu next to him. Yang Mu raised his head, looked at Yan Shenfu, then raised the stone in his hand and said slowly, "Is it not possible that we are this big stone, and then one day, there will also be a sharp drill bit to make us fall apart?" Yang Mu couldn't tell the respected old man in front of him about the Zerg, but the news he conveyed implicitly also shocked Yan Shenfu. He was not surprised at why Yang Mu was so compassionate at this moment, but at why Yang Mu thought of such a thing. After adjusting his thoughts, Yan Shenfu looked at Yang Mu, who had stopped talking, and said earnestly, "Yang Mu, it is a good thing to be prepared for danger in times of peace, but we, the people who design mechas, should not think like this. What we should think about is how to make our designs useful to humans. The development of the times needs to be followed, not blindly overthrown, let alone the arrogance of idealism." At this point, Yan Shenfu was furious and argued loudly with Yang Mu. The white-haired Yan Shenfu blushed at this moment and vowed to defend his ideas to the end. "Teacher, that's not what I meant." Realizing that his words seemed to have angered Yan Shenfu in front of him, Yang Mu also hurriedly apologized and explained again. "I don't care what you mean, I just hope you can change your mind immediately and apply your design talent to the real mecha design," Yan Shenfu said loudly again, and both sides fell into silence. Yan Shenfu gradually lost his anger, sighed, and said, "Yang Mu, I know you are not such a stubborn person, and I am not a person who can't distinguish right from wrong, but I hope you can think about this issue carefully." "Old Yan, I understand," Yang Mu said at this time, but there was a firm flame flashing in his eyes. "I will listen to your advice and make changes, but I will not give up this idea. I believe, one day in the future, you will understand me." Yang Mu felt a breath of air in his heart that he couldn't spit out at this moment. He really wanted to tell everything in 20 years at this time, and reveal all the hidden secrets in his heart. In this way, he would be free, and he didn't have to explain so much, and he didn't have to have so many troubles. But this is impossible. When he was reborn with this fact, it meant everything. At least for now, he could only bear this tragic fact alone. A trace of loss gradually appeared on Yang Mu's face. "I'm sorry, Mr. Yan, I know I have disappointed you again and again. I don't want to follow your advice to be a laboratory designer, but I stubbornly choose to fight. This may be something that cannot be changed in my bones. I don't want to surrender when someone's knife is on my neck one day. I would rather defend everything I love with a sword in my hand one day." Yang Mu said this in a resounding voice, and Yan Shenfu also raised his head and looked at Yang Mu. After a moment, Yan Shenfu sighed again, and seemed to wave to Yang Mu in a decadent manner. Yang Mu stood solemnly, saluted Yan Shenfu properly, then turned around and strode away from the shooting range. Yan Shenfu, who was still standing in the same place, threw down the stone in his hand, turned around, and looked at Yang Mu's figure leaving in the sunset, with an expression on his face that was indescribably lonely. Just now, Yan Shenfu gave up something he was going to tell Yang Mu. The battlefield mission at the end of this semester is a test where casualties cannot be controlled. Yan Shenfu wanted to tell Yang Mu about this today, and then let him choose to stay with him, so that he can avoid this test and let this good seedling stay. But he was wrong. The boy in front of him was eager to fight. He was more suitable to be a soldier than a scientist. At this last moment, Yan Shenfu gave up his own idea and acquiesced to Yang Mu's idea. He never gave up the idea of persuading Yang Mu to return to research. During this conversation, Yan Shenfu felt that he had a new idea. Maybe this child, without his excessive support, can also create a world of his own. Yan Shenfu sighed again, looked at his wrinkled hands, and said softly, "It seems I am really old." Chapter 178 Long Lies Teaching. Yang Mu returned to the dormitory with a heavy heart, sorted out his things, went to the cafeteria to eat, and then came to the design room that was always open in the school. He took a roll of paper and some drawing tools from the cabinet and started drawing on it. Although Yan Shenfu's words today did not shake Yang Mu's firm belief, it can even be said that it strengthened Yang Mu's belief to a certain extent, but at the same time Yang Mu also realized a problem. That is, his current design is indeed a tasteless one. Although such a design is amazing, in the eyes of Yan Lao, who pays more attention to practicality, such a design will not be valued. And if he continues like this, it will give Yan Lao an illusion that he cannot change his design concept and design light years. This will be extremely bad. And Yang Mu promised Yan Shenfu to change, so now he will make new changes. In Yang Mu's mind, there is another weapon that is completely in line with the current war, and even to some extent, it is very cruel. This is a range-killing weapon used against Zerg clusters. Although it is not a mecha, Yang Mu will draw it step by step now. The design of a single weapon seems to be simpler than the design of a mecha, but when Yang Mu drew it, he understood why this weapon was in the deepest part of his mind and was one of the most difficult drawings to recall. Each component is complicated and cumbersome, and many of them are parts that Yang Mu has never seen before, and need to be completely redesigned. In some places, Yang Mu even needs to indicate its forging process. Complex is the most appropriate word to describe its design process, but when its general design appears, the word to describe it should be tyranny. What's even more incredible is that this drawing is the only one with a name marked among all the drawings. Its name is not bloody, it is called Angel's Light. The lights at night have been illuminating this classroom, illuminating the drawing that Yang Mu is silently designing. Time flies, and it is June in a blink of an eye. In these few months of study, Yang Mu has also learned a lot of knowledge, of course, most of it is about design. A week ago, Yang Mu and his companions were fortunate to be led by Yan Shenfu to a military shipyard on Yanhuang Star, where they personally inspected and trained a retired siege hammer first-class attack ship that was about to be dismantled and recycled. There, Yang Mu also learned a lot, especially the design of the warships that Yang Mu and Yan Shenfu discussed later. Although it was very primitive, Yan Shenfu also agreed to ask his colleagues. For now, Yang Mu has begun to show his thoughts about anti-insect mechas and anti-insect warships step by step, but for things like anti-insect strategies and tactics, Yang Mu can't think of a good way to tell it. Today, Yang Mu and many classmates came to the shooting range of the academy again, where Long Lai will start the first lesson of battlefield training. Old Yang, you came back so late last night, did Old Yan ask you to draw the mecha again? Quinn staggered to Yang Mu's side, supported his head with both hands, and looked at Yang Mu with a clear expression. Yang Mu turned his head, glanced at him, and then glanced at the side. Did Ji Jin go to Su Shaoqing again? Yes, he went to Ma Wenjin's place last night and Su Shaoqing's place this morning. He also said that he might not come back for a while. When Quinn heard Yang Mu ask this, he said helplessly, "You two are both very busy people. I envy you so much." I don't know when the two guys around him were taken seriously by the teachers of the school. Yang Mu studied mecha design under the personal guidance of Yan Shenfu, a veteran of the school. As for Ji Jin, I don't know when Su Shaoqing noticed him, and then he was directly promoted to an assistant position. Because he chose bioengineering, he seemed to be emerging. As a result, Ma Wenjin also came to the door and asked for Ji Jin by name. It is said that the two teachers had a quarrel over this matter. In this way, Ji Jin became the assistant of two teachers. He was busy every day and was loved and hated by countless girls. When Yang Mu heard him say this, he realized another thing. Not coming back? Why? Su Shaoqing took Ji Jin away from the academy? I heard that they went to participate in some military competition. Eh? Don't you know about this? Quinn said. Military competition. Yang Mu lowered his head in thought, then he remembered that Yan Shenfu had mentioned such a thing to him a few days ago. He also tried his best to encourage him to go, but Yang Mu finally refused, because the blueprint of the Angel Light weapon he had been designing had reached the final stage of repair, and the result of his hard work for several months was finally going to be released. Yang Mu nodded, indicating that he understood what it was. At this time, Quinn turned his head and whispered beside Yang Mu. Yang Mu, let me tell you something. I think we are about to have a big assessment. Big assessment? What do you mean? Quinn shook his head and said, I don't know, but a senior from the previous class told me that they also had a collective mission this month. I heard it was very difficult, like the assessment we had last time on Hades. Yang Mu continued to ask, but Quinn said with a serious look, it's hard to say. The senior said it would be even harder. After hearing what Quinn said, Yang Mu's heart was aroused with some interest. He really hadn't heard anything about this matter, perhaps because he was in the laboratory all day. But if that's the case, he will face a severe test in the near future, so it seems that he should be careful. The two chatted like this and went to the center of the shooting range with a team. At this time, Long Lai was already standing there, and next to him, there were several mechanical exoskeletons. "Stand at attention, at ease," the instructor's voice sounded and fell, and the whole team was silent. They all stood solemnly, looking at Long Lai with his hands behind his back. Long Lai's eyes were still the kind of burning and stinging. He scanned the 79 people in front of him and said, "Sit down," while the whole team sat down upright. Long Lai also walked up to the stage in front, his eyes swept across Yang Mu's face, and spoke. "Today is your first practical training class for Battlefield Command, but it is only a preparatory class." Long Lai's powerful voice sounded here, and then he turned around and pointed at several exoskeletons next to him. "You should all recognize these mechanical exoskeletons, right? Today's course is how to drive these mechanical exoskeletons to fight." Long Lai's voice sounded, and everyone who heard his meaning clearly exclaimed immediately, because in the Academy's courses, there are very few courses on mechanical exoskeletons. And it can even be said that they are not the focus of everyone. The reason is very simple. Today, when mechas are popular, the role of this kind of mechanical exoskeleton has been greatly weakened. Until now, the military that still uses mechanical exoskeletons is generally the logistics troops, and only the police force on each planet will be equipped with them. And more, it is expanding into the civilian field. It can be said that mechanical exoskeletons are gradually withdrawing from the military establishment, and now Long Lai wants everyone to learn this backward weapon. I know what you are thinking. Whether you are willing to learn or not, I will only say this once: remember this, there are no weapons for you to choose on the battlefield. Whatever you have around you is a weapon. Long Lai's cold voice sounded, and everyone stopped the surprised expressions on their faces and listened to Long Lai's explanation again. Everyone has learned the most basic driving of mechanical exoskeletons before, but compared to some advanced mechanical exoskeleton driving skills, they do not have enough understanding. Our course task today is to learn another way to use it. Long Lai reached out and patted an iron bull exoskeleton next to him, and said to the students present. Chapter 179. Hearing Long Lai's words, Yang Mu, like most of his classmates, did not quite understand what the other party meant. Yang Mu should be relatively familiar with mechanical exoskeletons. First, he had served in many military branches in his previous life, and had been specially trained in some skills of using mechanical exoskeletons when he was in the special forces, so he could also skillfully use many types of mechanical exoskeletons. At the same time, some of his designs here often refer to the relevant data of mechanical exoskeletons, because mechas are, to a certain extent, advanced variants of mechanical exoskeletons. Through some data testing of mechanical exoskeletons, the design thinking of many mechas can be corrected. There are not many practical skills from mechanical exoskeletons, and they are basically highly dependent on the firepower and auxiliary systems of mechanical exoskeletons, and human control is not flexible. But now, Long Lai said that he would teach it another way to use it. So what exactly is this method? Long Lai looked at the students who were all a little stunned, and a smug expression appeared on his face, but he did not say it directly, but called the instructor next to him to come over, and he began to wear the Iron Bull mechanical exoskeleton. Yang Mu was also familiar with this very common military mechanical exoskeleton, because the design of this exoskeleton was the most common, with a heavy body, heavy batteries, a simple motion assistance system, and the simplest attack weapon. However, because the production process was simple and the mass production cost was extremely low, it was also mass-produced and basically invested in military logistics support. In the current war, wearing such an exoskeleton on the battlefield, in some special scenes, is not as good as wearing the simplest individual combat equipment. Yang Mu really couldn't think of any different moves such an exoskeleton armor could have. At this time, Long Lai had put on this mechanical exoskeleton with the help of two instructors, and connected the energy supply system, and started moving in it. Next, you will watch my movements first, and then think carefully about what I want to express. After saying this, Long Lai turned around and ran towards a ruined building not far away with the exoskeleton armor. At the same time, a floating projector next to everyone began to play the pictures taken by the camera on the Iron Bull armor. Yang Mu and everyone looked up and stared carefully at Long Lai, who was moving at high speed on the entire floating screen. Long Lai, wearing the Iron Bull exoskeleton, quickly came to the bottom of the entire building complex, and then stopped under a wall full of single holes. The steel cable launcher in his left hand directly shot out a steel cable, fixed it at the highest point of the entire building, and retracted the steel cable, and the entire Iron Bull was pulled up. At the same time, during the ascent, Long Lai actually shot out another steel cable from another launcher in his right hand at this time, and the sharp grappling hook directly pierced the top of another nearly 20-meter-high building next to it. And then, Long Lai made a move that made everyone exclaim directly. Because Long Lai actually unhooked the hook in his left hand, the entire exoskeleton body swung directly over. At this moment, the heavy mechanical exoskeleton was like a nimble ape shaking in the concrete forest, and landed steadily under the side wall of the building, and then slowly climbed to the top of the building. But before everyone could breathe a sigh of relief, Long Lai did something surprising again, because after he reached the tall building, he actually jumped directly from the roof. The whole exoskeleton tumbled in the air, and then the limbs of the whole exoskeleton hit the wall of the building hard, and slowly fell down. On the screen, huge sparks came out of the limbs of the Iron Bull exoskeleton, leaving deep scratches on the wall, and falling with dust and sand. Yang Mu, who was sitting in the field watching all these actions of Long Lai, was also surprised, because this was indeed incredible. At least he had never done such a risky thing with a mechanical exoskeleton. If all these actions were done with a mecha, it would be a very simple action, and Yang Mu could do it easily, but this is a mechanical exoskeleton, which has a weak protective force. Under such high-intensity actions, it may break quickly, and it is very likely to cause casualties. Yang Mu himself has tried it before, and this method is too risky and too dependent on personal driving skills. Is this another driving method that Long Lai wants to teach? But before Yang Mu could think of playing all this, Long Lai did not stop. He directly controlled the entire mecha to ram the walls of two houses from the side, and then walked back to the position of the students. The students who were sitting in place were already stunned by Long Lai's rough but extremely violent and aesthetic actions. They all looked at Long Lai, who was walking over covered in dust, in amazement. This series of actions performed with a mechanical exoskeleton was really unreasonable and beyond everyone's general cognition. Yang Mu looked up at Long Lai, but saw that there were no scars on his body. It seemed that he was not injured at all after such a violent action. Long Lai's strength can be seen from this. Panting, Long Lai took off the Iron Bull exoskeleton with the help of several instructors, and then stood in front of everyone again. Have you watched the action just now? What do you think? As soon as Long Lai said this, someone immediately raised his hand. Report to the chief instructor. You mean to say that as long as it is used properly, the mechanical exoskeleton can also play a huge role like a mecha? As soon as the words came out, Long Lai, who heard this, showed a disdainful smile, and it seemed that he did not agree with this idea. Several people who were still eager to try immediately stopped their hands and looked at Long Lai. Long Lai patted the dust on his body, raised his head and said to everyone, "It seems that you still don't understand. The principle I want to tell you is actually very simple. Another use of mechanical exoskeletons is the most violent use. I know that your general idea of mechanical exoskeletons is that this kind of thing can reduce your weight, increase your individual firepower, and extend your combat time, but what kind of environment are these things in? They can only be applied in a large environment, but what you want to learn is not this ordinary thing. What you want to learn today is how to use such a thing to escape in such an environment." The two words with a heavy breath came out of Long Lai's mouth, but they immediately shocked Yang Mu, and the dozens of students in the field were also somewhat confused. Long Lai looked at everyone's confused expressions, and his expression remained unchanged. He just raised his hand to signal, and then a group of buildings appeared on the projector next to him. Low, dense, and full of age. This is where you need to escape. Congratulations, your annual assessment is coming soon. Long Lai's voice rang out again, but everyone heard the word they least wanted to hear. Assessment. Another college assessment. As the saying goes, sharpen your spear before the battle. Everyone, today is the day. Everyone stand up. The students stood up immediately, and Long Lai's eyes became even colder and more serious. 4 people in a group, wearing mechanical exoskeletons, use the most violent way to pass through that group of buildings. The group that takes the shortest time can communicate with their families. As soon as Long Lai's words came out, everyone's eyes suddenly flashed. Chapter 180 Departure. Check your equipment and confirm your location again. In front of the NEAT team at the Yanhurong Star No. 7 military spaceport, Long Lai, wearing a strict military uniform, looked at the students in front of him who were dressed in black and ready to go, and said loudly. At this moment, all the students bowed their heads to confirm the information on their electronic watches, checked the things in their backpacks, and then stood up. Yang Mu also confirmed his boarding information and the various equipment he carried with him, let out a breath, and stood up again. Today is June 15th, a rare sunny day in the academy in June. Yesterday, the high-intensity mechanical exoskeleton training that lasted for a week ended, and at the same time, the big test that Long Lai mentioned finally came today. It's just that this test is different from the previous ones. This time, the test is in pairs, and Yang Mu and Quinn were assigned to one group. As for his mission, Yang Mu now only knows that he is going to a planet in a marginal galaxy. The specific mission is still unknown. When will the test start and how will it be scored? Yang Mu doesn't know, and all the students in the field don't know either. Before setting off in the morning, the students gave everyone the most basic equipment, including the all-black military uniform on their bodies. Yang Mu quickly recognized that this was actually the uniform of a special corps, and this corps was called the Intervention Corps. As the name suggests, what this corps does is completely different from other armies. This corps is a special corps organized by various countries, and most of the places where it is deployed are some backward planets. The purpose is to help development and protect the lives and safety of personnel from various countries on the planet. This is a corps with security nature, and it is also a corps that faces extreme danger at any time. Yang Mu also got a specific news from Long Lai the day before yesterday, that is, the students of the previous session also joined this corps at this time, and after completing the mission and returning, some people died there. Only 1 year of training let these students participate in such an extremely dangerous mission. This is the most different feature of Kunlo Academy, but it follows the simplest principle: survival of the fittest. Dangerous environment can make a person grow up quickly, and can gain 100 times more than what he learned in the classroom. It is the most effective way to train soldiers, but it is also the most risky way to train soldiers. Successful passing means a certain degree of rebirth from the ashes. Failure means that one's passion may be shed on a foreign battlefield. However, the summer assessment tasks for the first term of the academy this year are completely different from those for the second term of Yang Mu and others, because they will go to the armies of various countries, take up relevant positions, pass comprehensive assessments, and finally be graded. If the results are very good, the students will be able to graduate directly from Kunlun Academy. This is also another principle of Kunlun Academy, to train a super elite in the shortest time and use it for the army in the shortest time. Mr. Yan, don't you want to say a few words? Looking at the students who were sorting out their equipment, Long Lai turned around and asked Yan Shenfu, who was standing aside. Yan Shenfu raised his eyes and looked at the people in the field. His eyes paused for a moment on Yang Mu, who was sorting out his things with his head down. There was a trace of reluctance on his face, but in the end he closed his eyes, lowered his head and shook his hand, indicating that there was nothing to say. Today's practice ceremony was supposed to be hosted by Yang Qin, but for some reason, Yang Qin had to let Yan Shenfu attend the ceremony on his behalf. Yan Shenfu only said a few words symbolically when he came to attend the ceremony, and then he didn't say anything else. The reason was very simple, that is, Yan Shenfu didn't want to see Yang Mu leave here like this, and go to that unknown area of life and death. Originally, Yan Shenfu created an opportunity for Yang Mu, that is, the military competition. That was a great opportunity, not only allowing Yang Mu to contact more military people in advance, but also perfectly avoiding this trial. But he still refused, saying that he still had a design that was not completed. Instead, he handed over a roll of drawings to him yesterday. Yan Shenfu was not in the mood to check the heavy roll of design drawings. He just flipped through a few of them and realized that Yang Mu's design did not seem to be a mecha, so he sent the drawings directly to the assistants in the laboratory and asked them to help check it. Long Lai saw Yan Shenfu's statement, turned around and said loudly to everyone in the field, "Everyone stand at attention." The whole team stood in a corner of the spaceport. Remember the first priority of this mission: ensure your absolute safety, everyone. Let's go. Long Lai saluted everyone in the field, and the students immediately returned the salute. When Long Lai's voice fell, the long-awaited warship connection port had been opened, and all the students turned around and walked towards their respective ships. Yang Mu also gave Quinn a look, and walked towards an entrance next to him. Hearing the footsteps of the students leaving, Yan Xianfu raised his head again and looked at Yang Mu's back as he left. Until the other person disappeared at the boarding entrance, Yan Xianfu sighed and turned away. Let him go, I just hope that this kid will not be reckless and come back smoothly. Yan Xianfu was thinking this while walking, and at this time his communicator suddenly trembled. Yan Xianfu stopped, took out the communicator, and found that it was a message from the laboratory. Yan Xianfu clicked on the message, and a line of words popped up. Mr. Yan, please come to the laboratory immediately. The weapon test data you sent me has come out, and the results are amazing. It was just a short sentence. Perhaps because it was not finished yet, Yan Xianfu did not receive the data file, but seeing the other party's tone, he also understood that this matter should not be underestimated, and immediately quickened his pace to leave. Half an hour later, Long Lai, who was arranging the orderly departure of the first batch of students at the spaceport, suddenly received a message from Yan Xianfu. As soon as Long Lai answered the message, he was startled by the urgent voice of Yan Xianfu. In the communicator, Yan Xianfu tried his best to order Long Lai to go and take Yang Mu off the ship and bring him back to the academy. But when Long Lai ran to the dispatch center, the news he received was, 5 minutes ago, the battleship that Yang Mu was riding had passed through the wormhole and went to the designated star field, and it would take more than 10 days to pick him up. Seeing this situation, Long Lai sighed, with a helpless expression on his face. If he hadn't crossed the wormhole yet, he could indeed keep Yang Mu. But at this moment, in the joint statement of the Intervention Corps, in order to ensure that the transfer of personnel stationed in various places is not frequently interfered with by the armies of various countries, it is specially stipulated that once any participating personnel officially participate in the mission, the stationing time before leaving should exceed 2 weeks, and no one may transfer the relevant personnel under any conditions. Otherwise, it will be regarded as a deserter of the station personnel, and the military inspector has the right to deal with it on the spot. The plot is about to change again. I hope you like it. Chapter 181 Landing on Mocha Planet. Yang Mu, how can you be so calm? Sitting in the shaking cabin, Quinn turned his head and said to Yang Mu, who was sitting beside him with his eyes closed. Yang Mu opened his eyes, glanced at Quinn, and said, "What's wrong, Quinn? What are you afraid of?" Quinn shook his head, didn't say anything, just kept scanning the surroundings. Yang Mu and Quinn are now on a cargo ship on a level 4 habitable planet called Avila Starfield. The name of this level 4 habitable planet is Mocha, which means exile in this starfield. Yesterday, Yang Mu and Quinn were picked up by a cargo ship on the space battleship, and then stayed in their cargo hold, and landed on the surface of this planet with this cargo ship. This is a spaceship that can be called an antique. When you come here, you will feel out of touch with the real world. The cargo hold is filled with all kinds of inexplicable smells, pungent and turbid. What Quinn was looking at now was a man across from the cargo hold, lying on a cargo box with his upper body naked, waving a small knife in his hand. As for why Quinn was looking at him like that, it was because when Quinn and Yang Mu had just boarded the ship, as soon as the hatch was closed, this young man of similar age held a steel knife against Quinn's chest and asked him to hand over all the valuables on him. Of course, he didn't succeed in the end. Yang Mu just stretched out his hand and made a grabbing motion, plus an elbow strike, and took the other's knife away, and also left a mark on the other's face. The captain came here in time and scolded the young man, but he only scolded him twice and didn't say anything else. The young man lay aside by himself. The captain just glanced at Yang Mu and Quinn, did nothing, and left expressionlessly. It was only at that moment that Yang Mu realized the situation here. These people seemed to have an inexplicable hostility towards him and others, and it seemed that even if he and others had no fault, they would not have a good face towards him. It seems that the situation of the Intervention Corps here is not good. Quinn looked at Yang Mu's calm face, swallowed silently, and said nothing more. The experience just now was still a great shock to the 19-year-old boy. Only by looking at Yang Mu's indifferent expression could he feel a little relieved. "Are you two here to fight here too?" At this time, the boy who had been lying down suddenly spoke. Yang Mu and Quinn both raised their heads. Quinn looked at Yang Mu, and Yang Mu grinned and said, "Why do you say that?" As soon as the words came out, the boy who was lying on the cargo box immediately sat up cross-legged. Yang Mu could feel Quinn's muscles tightening a little. "Huh? Aren't you guys here to make trouble?" the messy-haired boy said, not hiding the hostile look in his eyes. You keep saying you're here to help us, but you still make a mess. In that case, why do you still accept the task of transporting us? Yang Mu did not answer the other party's question, but asked back. The spinning knife in the hands of the messy-haired boy stopped for a moment, and he looked at Yang Mu with a very unfriendly look. Finally, he snorted coldly, then crossed his legs and lay down again, and stopped talking. Seeing that the other party was also silent, Yang Mu also closed his eyes and rested his mind. The only sound in the entire cargo hold was the vibration of the spacecraft. Half an hour later, the spacecraft landed, and Yang Mu and Quinn walked out of the cargo hold of the old spacecraft and stepped onto this foreign land. The first thing they saw was the dust blowing in their faces and the rolling heat waves. Yang Mu, what kind of hell is this place? Damn, it's so hot, it's going to. Bah. Quinn put on his backpack, covered his face with one hand, and said beside Yang Mu, but before he finished speaking, he ate a mouthful of sand. Yang Mu also went forward against the wind, and then not far away in this plain area that can be called an airport, he saw two people wearing black military uniforms. Yang Mu dragged Quinn over there, and the two men seemed to have seen Yang Mu and also walked towards him. The four men met, and Yang Mu saw the two men in front of him clearly. One was a man with a broad face, walking in front, and the other was a thin man behind him. Apart from this, the two men had no difference: broad skin, chapped lips, and wrinkles all over their faces. "Hello, are you Yang Mu and Quinn Wilson?" The broad-faced man came forward, and Yang Mu and Quinn both stood up and saluted, and took out the documents in their military uniforms for him to check. The man behind him was holding a small stick in his mouth, and his eyes kept scanning Yang Mu and Quinn. The middle-aged man used an instrument to scan the built-in chip on the document, obtained the data of the two people, then nodded, and spoke to the two people again. "It's too windy here, let's go back to the camp first. Welcome to the intervention corps." With that, he signaled Yang Mu to follow the thin man to the military off-road vehicle not far away, while the middle-aged man went to the spaceship and directed the other two trucks to pull supplies out of the spaceship. This damn place. After getting in the car and closing the door, Quinn kept patting the dust off his body and said to Yang Mu. Yang Mu didn't say anything, but just silently cleaned the dust on his body. At this time, the thin man sitting in the driver's seat spoke. A damn place. Wait for you to stay for a few days, you will know how damn this place is." With that, the man spit out the last stick, and then searched in his pocket. A lollipop. It seems that this guy was just eating candy. "Hello, sir, what is your name?" At this time, Quinn began to show his ability to communicate with people, and immediately spoke. "HMPH, just call me Black Scorpion, it just fits this damn place, senior, I mean your real name," Quinn explained again. "You don't need to know this, anyway, a nobody like me is not worth mentioning to you who come here to gild yourself." The thin man with a disdainful tone turned around, looked at Yang Mu and Quinn's faces, and said again. "But seriously, what are you thinking about coming here to gild yourself? You are the children of the upper class, it's very common to lose your life in this place." Hearing the other party's words, Quinn did not answer again, but turned his head to look at Yang Mu. Yang Mu didn't care about these situations at all, just checked the watch in his hand to see if there was any mission information, but after finding no signal, Yang Mu had to lean back in his seat and close his eyes to rest. Seeing Yang Mu's attitude, the guy nicknamed Black Scorpion didn't seem to be angry at all, just turned around again, and Quinn also laughed and chatted with the other party. A few minutes later, the middle-aged man with a broad face also got on the car and directed the direction of the camp. On the way, Yang Mu learned that this middle-aged man was the captain of the camp and the highest-ranking officer here. His name was Zhang Feng, and he was from the New Kinstar region. When they arrived at the camp, Yang Mu and Quinn got off the car. The sight they saw surprised them, especially Quinn. The camp in front of them did not cover a large area. It was surrounded by 3 two-story buildings and a 4-meter-high wall. Inside and outside the wall, there were positions composed of sand nets to fix the wall. There was no green around the entire camp. The surrounding area was all yellow sand. Only under a large valley not far from the camp could many buildings be seen. According to Zhang Feng, there was the only town within a radius of hundreds of miles, the town of Chavalin. The whole world speaks Mandarin, haha. Chapter 182 Angel's Light. Yan Huangstar, National Mecha Research Institute, Mecha Weapon Research Laboratory. Swish, swish, swish bang bang one after another, Streamlined missiles came out with white tail flames, and then decomposed into pieces of prisms in the air. Each prism rotated and unfolded its folded tail the next moment after separation. The blue light flashed across the prism tail, and finally pierced into the land in front of it. The next second, the light of the explosion lit up, and one side of the entire valley was turned upside down, and thousands of lands turned into scorched earth. At the same time, several more missiles flew out, repeating the previous steps, but the difference was that the target of these prism-like things turned into an electromagnetic protective shield. The moment the prisms whistled and pierced into contact, everything in front of them was instantly replaced by dazzling light. The shocking picture gradually disappeared, and the people in pure white work clothes standing in front of the holographic projector were dumbfounded. Yan Xianfu, who was also standing aside, looked at the picture carefully. His right hand trembled a little, and the expression on his face was also shocked. Mr. Yan, this is the situation that our intelligent simulation system has calculated and simulated. The lethality of this weapon against ordinary targets can be 3 times greater than that of airborne rockets. When 2 boxes of this weapon are launched at the same time, the power can be equivalent to the power of a large carrier rocket cluster. When the target is replaced with a target with an electromagnetic field, the power can reach more than 6 times the previous one, and this design is specially designed for mecha equipment. The researcher took the intelligent panel and told Yan Xianfu the data that had just been measured, and everyone around looked at the white-haired old man. What about the production materials, production process, and production cost? Yan Xianfu said. Whether powerful weapons can be truly applied in actual combat depends on another important factor, that is, whether they can be mass-produced. Many production lines for the production process may need to be developed, but the materials used for the general parts of the weapon are ordinary, and the resonance plate materials of the separation bomb are relatively special. After mass production, the cost should be around 10 million per box, and if the resonance plate is removed, the cost will be around 5 million. As the researcher's words sounded, many people around immediately exclaimed. Mechas have always had a big problem, that is, the intensity of firepower. The weapon rack can only equip a small amount of firepower. Even for dedicated firepower support mechas, because they have to ensure the stable movement of the mechas, the firepower they are equipped with can only cover a small scale, and they are more used to attack and retreat to block the enemy. If you want to cover a certain area with firepower, you need fighter jets or space warships to deliver it directly. Not only is the cost high, but it is also difficult to achieve for mecha teams in depth. But now, this weapon called Angel Light is only the size of an external chassis, and the power it releases can be comparable to a heavy vacuum bomb. You know, that kind of bomb mecha can only load one at a time, and it has to be equipped with a launcher. And now, a mecha that has been studied by various countries to make up for the firepower defect of mechas has appeared in front of everyone. And more importantly, it is cheap, cheaper than any of the most common rocket launchers. Powerful, easy to carry, and low cost. This is simply a magical weapon for mechas. Yan Xianfu, who also knew the result, was immediately excited. He turned around and ran to the communication area of the laboratory. After swiping his card, he dialed Long Lai's communicator. Long Lai, stop Yang Mu for me right now. You must stop him. Go now. Yan Xianfu almost shouted this sentence, and Long Lai on the other end immediately agreed and hung up the communicator. How many times has this simulation been carried out? Go borrow the computer of the Battleship Research Institute and do a battle-level simulation. After saying all this, Yan Xianfu turned around again and looked at the people in the field. Start to build this weapon immediately. The research tasks of number 15 and number 33 will be temporarily shelved. Make this thing first. Yan Xianfu's words rang out, and the few people standing around waiting for Yan Xianfu to issue orders quickly moved, and the huge laboratory was full of people again. But a few minutes later, Yan Xianfu, who was busy, received a call from Long Lai, saying that Yang Mu had left the Yanhuang Star region and he was powerless. Yan Xianfu's brows suddenly frowned. He contacted several people again, all of whom were high-ranking politicians that Yan Xianfu knew, as well as Wu Yanqin and his own son, but in the end, they basically all got the same response, that is, there was no way to get Yang Mu back immediately. The minimum deadline given by Yan Xianfu's son was 10 days. After thinking for a while, the anxious Yan Xianfu somehow dialed Su Yuanming's phone. Su Yuanming, who was undergoing rehabilitation treatment, happened to receive this call. Hello, how are you, Lying on the bed in the rehabilitation room, Su Yuanming answered this unknown communication inexplicably. Mr. Yan. What do you want to talk to me about? Hearing that the voice on the other end was Yan Xianfu again, Su Yuanming couldn't help but jokingly said, "Did Yang Mu invent something again? This time I can guarantee that I definitely didn't help," Su Yuanming said with a smile, and continued to listen to Yan Xianfu's words on the other end of the communicator, but the smile on his face gradually disappeared, and turned into a serious expression, and finally frowned in deep thought. Su Yuanming already knew the purpose of Yan Xianfu's call, and also knew what he wanted to do. Su Yuanming thought silently for a moment, then sighed and said, "I'm sorry, Mr. Yan, it's hard for me to help you. He is now my father in name only, and I have no contact with him for a long time." Su Yuanming's tone was almost cold, and when he said this, the nurses beside him could feel some coldness. Su Yuanming's father was the military minister of Pajar, and he was a very important figure in the army. Although Yan Xianfu was a national engineer, he couldn't get in touch with him, and his son was too busy to help. So he called to use his relationship to bring Yang Mu back. Logically speaking, Su Yuanming should be able to easily ask for help from his father, and Yang Mu's own value should be enough for them to make such a request. But Su Yuanming, who was almost disgusted with his father, could not do this anyway. As for the reason, it was too complicated, at least for a short time. Su Yuanming couldn't say it. After hanging up the communicator, Su Yuanming threw it aside. The worry on his face was still there, and his eyes were full of thoughts. On one side was his father, who he did not want to contact and who would still beg for mercy if he contacted him. On the other side was his good friend, an outstanding design genius. In the rehabilitation room, except for the faint sound of the rehabilitation machine, it was quiet. Rejected by Su Yuanming, Yan Xianfu had no other choice but to sigh and continue to preside over the work in the laboratory. But at this moment, a staff member in the communication room rushed over to Yan Xianfu and said, "Mr. Yan, someone called and asked for you." He said his name was Su Yuanming. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 183 Assessment Task. This is your dormitory. It was recently vacated in the camp, so you two can stay here for now. The thin man nicknamed Black Scorpion brought Yang Mu and Quinn to the second floor of the building in the middle of the camp, pushed open a half-closed door, and helped put some things in. There were 4 beds on one side of the small room, and a row of shelves on the other side, used to store various items. There was only a narrow aisle in the middle, and only a small window opposite the door, which made the room look a little small. The door lock was broken last time, and it was a bit bad. It's hard to fix for now. Black Scorpion used his fingers to fiddle with the severely deformed door frame. But it doesn't matter. Remember to use the bed to block the door before going to bed at night, otherwise you will have to eat dust all night. After saying this, Black Scorpion pointed to the bed, then stretched his legs and walked out, but suddenly remembered something. Oh, by the way, the camp has energy control. After 8 p.m., the dormitory will not provide lighting. You have to go to the kitchen downstairs to get drinking water, but it is also a quota. Don't think about washing your hair and taking a bath. Anyway, you should use it sparingly. After saying this, Black Scorpion went downstairs without looking back. After cleaning the sands in the room, Yang Mu and Quinn made their own bedding and put away various things. Both of them were sweating in this hot weather. Quinn sat aside and drank a bottle of water, then exhaled and said to Yang Mu, "Well, we brothers are going to have a hard life now." After saying that, he wiped the sweat on his head with a corner of his sleeve. Yang Mu changed his clothes and only wore a black long-sleeved shirt and trousers. He also drank a few sips of water and said to Quinn with a smile, "Why? Haven't you experienced such a life before?" Quinn lowered his head and shook it, then smiled and sighed. "Of course I've experienced hard times, but this time, I'm really stumped." "Yang Mu, you said that the academy is the same, so they gave us 2 sets of forward Type 2 exoskeletons. What can we do with them?" Yang Mu smiled without saying anything, just pointing to the sky. "Don't think too much. I guess it's because of the special environment on the ground here that doesn't allow the storage and use of equipment such as mechas. Besides, didn't the officer on the warship say when we came here? The self-reactive delivery platform in the sky has our mechas stored on it. Quinn pretended to look at the ceiling above, but finally sighed and murmured, no matter what, it's better to have mechas around, delivering from space. Who knows if it will be in time in an emergency. Yang Mu shook his head, not wanting to dwell on these things anymore, and just urged Quinn to go down with him. Zhang Feng just said that he had something to talk to Yang Mu and Quinn about later. Yang Mu probably wanted to talk about the assessment task. When they came downstairs, Yang Mu and Quinn saw several people in black uniforms walking towards the first floor at the door. When they saw Yang Mu and Quinn, the soldiers greeted them and walked towards the building next to them. When they walked in, Yang Mu saw that it was a spacious room with dozens of people sitting in the room. On one side, next to a projection screen, Zhang Feng was talking about something. Seeing Yang Mu and others come in, Zhang Feng paused for a moment and introduced Yang Mu and Quinn to everyone present. Everyone, let's get to know each other. This is Yang Mu and this is Quinn. They are both top students of the military academy. The people sitting on the chairs just smiled slightly, and then their expressions continued to become serious. Yang Mu looked carefully at the people present. Including himself and Quinn, there were a total of 30 people. Everyone in front of him had a dark face, and their faces were all chapped due to the dry environment. Yang Mu and Quinn gestured slightly, and also found a place to sit down, listening to Zhang Feng on the stage continue to speak. We have contacted Lao Bao and his men in Camp Number 3. They agreed to support our operation this time. However, they suffered a sudden attack from the rebels last time and their ammunition was consumed too quickly. They hope that we can help them replenish 1/3 of their ammunition, including 2 mechanical exoskeletons, Zhang Feng said, holding the laser pen in his hand, and looked at the people in the field. Ammunition is okay, but mechanical exoskeletons are not. A man with the golden hair said in the audience. His voice was muddy but firm. Hearing the words of the blonde man, Zhang Feng did not seem angry, but asked, Old Jin, you don't agree? Yang Mu and Quinn both looked over, somewhat confused about the current situation. Yesterday you were still complaining to me about the lack of resources in the camp, and today we replenished some supplies. It's not appropriate to spend them so generously. The blonde man called Lao Jin continued to say yes, Captain, the deputy captain is right. We are not doing well in the first place, and giving so much is too generous, someone said at this time, and many people sitting on the chairs echoed it. Zhang Feng seemed to stop and think for a while, and then gave his conditions after weighing them again, and everyone argued again. Yang Mu, who was sitting on the side, gradually understood the real reason for their quarrel. They were preparing a search and rescue plan. The target was a mine in the mountain pass behind the town of Chavalin. It was originally a mine run by an OSA company. There were a group of people from various countries working there. However, due to the recent riots of the rebels, there had been no news for 2 days. The Intervention Corps ordered the 3 surrounding camps to search and confirm, and Camp Number 6 where Yang Mu was located was the main force of this operation. In fact, there were less than a platoon of soldiers here, and the risk factor was very high. However, in the face of such a thing, these soldiers with vicissitudes of life did not resist at all, but were somewhat enthusiastic about this operation. Yang Mu naturally understood the reason. The personnel of the Intervention Corps were basically recruited from veterans of various armies. Every year, a generous salary was deposited into their or their relatives' accounts. They were originally for making money. This kind of rescue mission would also have a high reward. After all, the Intervention Corps was also a security corps, and it was necessary to collect relevant remuneration. However, due to the severity of the mission, they had to ensure their own safety, so they would be very fussy. The captain and the deputy captain discussed for a long time in the room, and finally made a decision, that is, to give the other side a quarter of the ammunition and a mechanical exoskeleton, and everyone agreed. After saying this, these people dispersed and went down to prepare. Zhang Feng kept Yang Mu and the other 2, and sat in the room with a blonde man named Lao Jin. Your name is Yang Mu, right? Zhang Feng spoke first and asked Yang Mu, and Yang Mu nodded. Your assessment tasks have also been given. If you complete this rescue mission with us, it means that you have passed the assessment. Zhang Feng did not keep them in suspense and directly told them the assessment tasks of the 2. Yang Mu and Quinn both nodded seriously, indicating that they understood what he meant. Seeing that both of them understood, Zhang Feng continued to speak. Then you will be assigned to our 2 teams. However, we may start the operation in the next few days. You two should get used to the team members as soon as possible." After listening to Zhang Feng's explanation, Yang Mu also took the opportunity to ask about some things in the camp. After exchanging a few pleasantries, he was about to leave when he was suddenly stopped by Lao Jin, who had been sitting next to him without saying anything. "You two should wait a moment," Lao Jin said so, with a smile on his ferocious face. Yang Mu glanced at him, then at Zhang Feng, and finally looked straight at him. "I won't beat around the bush. I heard that you came here for the assessment and there are mech reinforcements," Lao Jin said with a grin, with an ill-intentioned smile on his face. "Sorry, we can't give you these things." Before Yang Mu could explain, Quinn directly refused. Yang Mu immediately saw that the light in the eyes of the two people in front of him dimmed a bit. Zhang Feng frowned, and it seemed that he was also very concerned about this matter. He said, "Why do you say that?" Yang Mu glanced at the other party and said it in a sincere manner. "I'm sorry, sirs. These mechas are on space. They will only be automatically deployed when we encounter an emergency. We cannot use them in advance." Hearing Yang Mu's explanation, Lao Jin's face twitched obviously, and his attitude towards Yang Mu and the others became cold. Although he seemed to want to say something, he finally sat down and ignored them. Zhang Feng saw such an embarrassing scene and laughed a few times, letting Yang Mu and Quinn go out. Chapter 184 Provocation. Yang Mu and Quinn walked out of the barracks that served as a meeting room together. Quinn, who was standing by, immediately winked at Yang Mu and then approached him and said, "Yang Mu, what did they mean by that just now?" When Quinn spoke, the alert expression on his face was very noticeable. Yang Mu grinned and said, "It's not that they deliberately made trouble for us. I guess they want to increase their strength because of the upcoming battle, then they shouldn't have set their sights on us. Also, how did they know that we would have mech reinforcements?" Quinn was still a little bit unwilling to say it, and it seemed that he was very upset about being questioned just now. "Although you and I are both wearing this black military uniform now, and on the surface we all look like people from the intervention corps. But Quinn, you have to know that these people don't have the same background as us. Their purpose is much simpler than ours, that is, to save their lives and make more money, so they can do whatever it takes to achieve this." But Quinn still wanted to say something, but Yang Mu stopped him. "Don't worry. Even so, I don't think they will do anything to us. Let's not talk about this. Let's go check out our mechanical exoskeletons and adjust them properly." The mechanical exoskeletons of the two people had been transported together when they got off the spacecraft today. Moreover, Quinn was an expert in mechanical exoskeletons. These equipment, which were originally parts, could be assembled by the two of them together, perhaps before dark today. If we finish assembling it early, we can also get familiar with the surrounding terrain, Yang Mu said again. Camp number 6 is in a small valley, with a relatively wide field of vision, but there are no obstructions. Yang Mu decided to get familiar with the surrounding environment first. Quinn saw that Yang Mu didn't want to talk about this topic anymore. According to his understanding of Yang Mu, since Yang Mu said so, there should be no problem. He sighed and followed Yang Mu's pace and walked towards the warehouse on the side. But at this time, on the open space of the wall in front of the camp, a dozen people were maintaining equipment by the wall. Several people exchanged glances, and finally a burly man stood up and walked towards Yang Mu and the others. Yang Mu also noticed this situation immediately, and immediately stopped and turned to look at the sturdy man who was walking towards him. The sturdy man had a full beard and a burly figure. Seeing Yang Mu and Quinn looking at him, he curled his lips and said to Yang Mu, "Hey, kid, I heard that you two are still military academy students." The other party's tone was not polite. Yang Mu looked at her with a little impatience, but still nodded. Seeing Yang Mu nod, the other party said "huh?" then walked forward again, walked in front of Yang Mu, lowered his head and looked at Yang Mu. Quinn, who was standing aside, also found that the atmosphere seemed a little wrong, and immediately walked forward, stood beside Yang Mu, and looked at him. The sturdy man glanced at Yang Mu and Quinn's faces, and then continued, "My name is Luda, let's go, let's play together." Yang Mu glanced at the other party, and then looked at the few people who were looking at this side not far away, and immediately understood what the other party meant. These people obviously wanted to provoke, although they were not necessarily malicious. But they definitely wanted to show off their power to Quinn and him. Quinn also realized this situation, tugged at Yang Mu's sleeve, and gave Yang Mu a cautious look. Yang Mu smiled and said to the strong man in front of him, "Sorry, we still have to check our equipment and we are not available for the time being. Hey, kid, Luda, have given you so much face, you must accept my invitation today. Seeing that Yang Mu did not want to accept his challenge, Luda was obviously a little anxious, and his attitude became unreasonable. Quinn also stood up at this time and stared at him. I said I would not come, so I will not come. How about it? Before he finished speaking, Luda's eyes changed immediately, and he immediately stretched out his hands, clenched his hands into claws, and was about to grab Quinn. But as a student from Kunlun College, the fighting skills learned from hard training are well known, not to mention that Quinn has been more cautious. As soon as the opponent's hand was extended, Quinn immediately turned sideways, stretched out his own hand, and directly hugged the opponent's waist, then suddenly exerted force, and unexpectedly hugged the opponent and threw him to the ground. The sound of Ruda falling to the ground was heard, and the sergeant sitting in the distance immediately stood up, looked at each other, and rushed over. Quinn was already a little angry, and now the opponent hit him directly, so he immediately rolled up his sleeves, clenched his fists, and rushed over with a roar. Ruda, who was thrown to the ground, stood up a little confused at this time, but more of it was anger after waking up, because he didn't expect that he would be knocked down by the opponent like this, and it was just one blow. Ruda also roared immediately, and was about to attack Quinn again, who crossed over him and fought with his companions. But before he could move his body, a calf suddenly appeared in front of him, and then his eyes went black. Of course, Yang Mu couldn't just sit there and watch. Seeing the strong man screaming and flying backwards again, Yang Mu took a big step forward, leaped directly into the air, and then kicked one of the opponents away with a flying kick. At the same time, he opened his hands and beat another of the opponents to the ground. At this time, Quinn also hugged one of the opponents and threw him to the ground, then grabbed the thinner man, directly clamped the other's neck with his arm, and pressed him to his chest. Hey, what are you doing, you two? Let go, let go. Several soldiers in the field had already fallen to the ground. At this time, Black Scorpion appeared from nowhere and ran out to make peace. People on the surrounding buildings also lay on the railings one after another to watch the scene in the field. Everyone had a happy face, and even whistled, as if they didn't care at all that the soldiers in front of them were knocked down by two kids. Black Scorpion rushed to rescue them, and Yang Mu and Quinn also put away their postures. The soldiers who were knocked to the ground also stood up one after another, but everyone looked at Yang Mu and Quinn with fear in their eyes, and no one said a few harsh words. They all supported each other and returned to the barracks. Old Jin, don't do this kind of meaningless actions anymore. Standing at the door of the conference room, Zhang Feng looked at the situation in the venue and said seriously to Old Jin behind him. Old Jin seemed not to hear him, glanced a few times, and then turned and went in. Zhang Feng did not leave the door, still looking at the situation in the venue. The two military academy students in the venue were so strong. Judging from their appearance, each of them was probably above level 4. Especially the one called Yang Mu, who actually kicked several people so hard that they had to rely on his teammates to help them get up. It seems that these two guys are powerful characters. Why would the higher-ups call such powerful characters here and ask them to do such a task? Isn't it a waste of time? Zhang Feng was puzzled, but after a moment he shook his head and put all these things behind him. He returned to the meeting room and discussed the battle plan with Lao Jin. The atmosphere in the camp also changed slightly. At least the idea of bullying the newcomers had disappeared. Chapter 185 Unpeaceful. The one in the yard basically calmed Quinn's anger. After that, he and Yang Mu worked together in the warehouse to assemble the mechanical exoskeleton in the cargo box. The warehouse was not big and the weather was very hot. Both of them worked shirtless inside. In order to save energy for the mechanical exoskeleton, there was only a small mechanical crane in the warehouse. The two were busy inside, assembling the mechanical exoskeleton with various tools from time to time. Yang Mu, come on, use your design thinking and come up with some constructive ideas for this forward too. Standing up and wiping the sweat off his face, Quinn stretched his waist and said to Yang Mei jokingly. Yang Mu tightened a self-tightening screw of the mechanical exoskeleton, stood up, glanced at Quinn, and then looked at the roughly assembled mechanical exoskeleton in front of him. Smiling, Yang Mu said, now that you mention it, I actually have an idea. When Quinn heard Yang Mu say this, his face also showed interest. He walked forward and waited for Yang Mu to continue. Yang Mu bent down and picked up two small parts, then stood up and handed them to Quinn. These were auxiliary buffer devices for the joints of the two mechanical exoskeletons, but they were of different sizes. Looking at the things in his hand, Quinn still didn't quite understand Yang Mu's idea. "You just told me not to assemble this thing. Are you going to make changes to it?" Quinn pointed at the thing in his hand and asked. Yang Mu picked up another one and said to Quinn, "That's not necessary. We just need to install these things in reverse." As he said this, Yang Mu took a buffer device that was obviously for the lower limbs of the mechanical exoskeleton, walked to the side of the mechanical exoskeleton, and then pressed it against a joint of the mechanical exoskeleton's arm. The device, which seemed a little larger, could be installed completely. Quinn saw Yang Mu's action and suddenly realized it. He pointed at Yang Mu and said excitedly, "You mean to install this here? To increase the upper limb strength of the mecha, but it won't work if the lower limbs become weak, right?" Quinn raised an objection again. Yang Mu smiled again and said to Quinn, "In this kind of terrain, do you think the strength of the lower limbs is more important than the strength of the upper limbs?" Quinn nodded, but Yang Mu shook his head. "Our mission this time is to go to the mine for a rescue mission. Let's not talk about the structure of the mine. If you encounter sudden danger, you should pay more attention to the movements of your feet." Yang Mu paused and pointed at the arm of the mechanical exoskeleton. "Or should you pay more attention to the movements of your hands? This exoskeleton design is a traditional design. At the same time, the strength of the lower limbs is increased to load heavy firepower. Now, do we have such a strong recoil with an electromagnetic rifle?" Yang Mu's words accurately pointed out several points. Quinn stood aside and thought carefully, and he also felt that Yang Mu's method was feasible. But is this really good? Quinn was still a little uncertain. He still felt that it was better for the lower limbs of the mecha to be stronger. "Okay, listen to me, I guarantee it will not hurt. Don't forget the violent use method that Wang Lai said, it will definitely be useful when the time comes." Yang Mu did not explain any more, and immediately took the tools and installed the buffer device. In fact, Yang Mu still has some other opinions on why this should be installed in this way. This way of installation can strengthen the upper limb strength, which can help him climb some buildings and find high points for attack. Yang Mu believes that in this unpredictable environment, this is definitely more beneficial than harmful. Quinn did not object. After thinking about it, he also helped Yang Mu to install all the other parts of the mechanical exoskeleton. Just when the exoskeleton was fully assembled, Yang Mu and Quinn had no time to be happy. Suddenly, there was a flash of fire in front of them, and a huge explosion was heard in the distance. Yang Mu and Quinn quickly ran out of the warehouse. At this time, there was a sound in the camp. The searchlights of the two lookouts on the wall were shining everywhere. Several sergeants ran directly past Yang Mu and Quinn and ran into the warehouse. Yang Mu and Quinn walked out and looked around with a puzzled look on their faces. At this time, Quinn suddenly pointed to a place and said loudly to Yang Mu, "Yang Mu, look over there." Yang Mu immediately looked in the direction that Quinn pointed, and saw a blazing fire burning over there, and a small but noisy sound gradually came. That place was the town of Chavalin. "Come on, two people, release the drone and go see what's going on over there." Upstairs, Zhang Feng, who was also awakened by the explosion, shouted to the yard, and the two sergeants immediately walked towards the basement on the first floor. A moment later, two old drones took off and flew towards the town. "This is really incredible. We haven't been here for a day, and we see such a big scene." Quinn stood on a sandbag nearby, looking up at the situation in the distance with great interest. Yang Mu stood in the yard, watching the people in the entire camp get ready in a short time, and everyone stood around the wall, alert to the situation. Perhaps because everyone was busy, no one noticed that it was Yang Mu and the other two who were idle at the moment, and a moment later, Yang Mu also got specific information from the captain who issued the order. The town of Chavalin was attacked by the rebels, but it seemed that only one shell exploded, and no trace of the rebel forces was found in the town. Half an hour later, after confirming that there was no other situation, Zhang Feng lifted the first level alert, and everyone returned to their rooms to rest. Because of this sudden situation, Yang Mu and Quinn were also given a few more instructions by Zhang Feng and returned to their rooms. However, this time, in addition to the two mechanical exoskeletons parked in the warehouse, Yang Mu and Quinn put all the other weapons and equipment they could carry in the room on the second floor. From the time the explosion sounded, the two knew that this was no longer the comfortable campus where they were. This is a turbulent land, and at any time, they may give their lives here. Yang Mu did not react much to such a scene, but Quinn was stunned by this incident. The bedding that was originally against the wall was also pulled to the door, just to be able to react quickly when there was danger. The night at Camp Number 6 on Mocha Star was actually not peaceful, because in the second half of the night, Javelin was bombarded twice again, and one of them was not far from Camp Number 6. And the explosion directly woke everyone up. Everyone in the camp was like a frightened bird. Every time, they got up quickly and armed themselves, and then went back to sleep after the alarm was lifted. After all this tossing, everyone was a little tired. Even Yang Mu and Quinn, who were in stronger physical condition, still felt tired because of the busy day, and they were yawning all the time. When the sun rose in the morning, Yang Mu got up in high spirits, took his things and prepared to go out to wash up, but Yang Mu saw two armored vehicles parked in the middle of the yard downstairs. Some team members were moving something to the car, and some were already wearing mechanical exoskeletons. Seeing them like this, Yang Mu immediately realized that they were preparing to go out, but he didn't know if it was related to what happened yesterday. Looking at the busy figures of these people, Yang Mu's heart moved, put down the things in his hands, and went downstairs directly. Chapter 186 Outbound Mission. Yang Mu ran downstairs quickly and came to the barracks yard. He happened to meet the golden-haired old Jin. The other party looked up at Yang Mu, with no expression on his face, and walked to the side. Yang Mu just nodded modestly, and then looked carefully at what they were doing. The sergeants in the yard were moving things from the warehouse into the armored vehicle. There were also a dozen people wearing mechanical exoskeletons, including Lu Da, who was beaten by Yang Mu yesterday. "Hey, kid, what are you looking at? Do you want to go out and play together?" Lu Da seemed to be completely unconcerned about what happened yesterday. Seeing Yang Mu, he said loudly. Yang Mu glanced at him, then glanced around, grinned, and replied with a smile on his face. Okay, Yang Mu originally planned to go out and take a look around in the next 2 days to understand the surrounding situation. Now that the other party said so, Yang Mu had nothing to do in the camp, so of course he agreed. Hearing that Yang Mu immediately agreed to his question, Lu Da's expression suddenly stiffened, and then he said to Yang Mu with a laugh. Just kidding, I don't have the final say on this. Seeing that Lu Da avoided his question, Yang Mu didn't agree, but said to him, it doesn't matter, I'll just prepare the things. Before the other party could stop him, Yang Mu turned around and prepared to go to the warehouse to put on his mechanical exoskeleton, but when he turned around, he saw Lao Jin standing behind him. Lao Jin, with messy hair, was holding some equipment. There was still no expression on his face, but his eyes moved down and scanned Yang Mu. Boss, Lu Da, who was standing aside, also noticed this situation at this time. He was thinking about how to explain it, but Lao Jin spoke first. You can go, but if you fail, no one here will risk saving your life. Lao Jin said this coldly, and walked around Yang Mu to the side, leaving a stunned crowd in the field. At the same time, Zhang Feng, who was standing aside, also heard Lao Jin's words, and the expression on his face changed. He took a step and followed, as if he wanted to say something to Lao Jin. Seeing this, Yang Mu didn't care too much. He walked straight to the warehouse and put on the mechanical exoskeleton he had assembled. A moment later, when Yang Mu walked out of the warehouse fully armed with a mechanical exoskeleton, Zhang Feng and others were already waiting there in the yard. Yang Mu, there is no combat mission in this operation, so I agree to let you go, but you must remember to stay alert at all times and never leave the team at any time. Zhang Feng did not speak to stop Yang Mu, but agreed to let Yang Mu go, but he repeatedly reminded him. Yang Mu nodded, and understood that the other party probably argued with Lao Jin, and finally agreed to let him go. Lao Jin, who was standing aside, still had an indifferent expression on his face. He turned around and said hello to the soldiers who were ready around him. A dozen soldiers who were also wearing mechanical exoskeletons swarmed into two armored vehicles. Yang Mu also sat on it. The gate of the camp slowly opened, and two heavy all-terrain armored vehicles drove out of the camp, leaving a trail of smoke and dust. Quinn, who had just gotten up, was shocked to learn that Yang Mu had gone out like this. Pay attention. Today we are delivering ammunition to camp number 3. We will pass through a residential area. Please keep the speed. When you come back, you must investigate what happened yesterday. Everyone, please stay alert. Those who are useless should stay in the car and don't move around. Lao Jin said this in the communication channel of the previous car. On the one hand, he was talking about the precautions for today, But he didn't forget to mock Yang Mu at the end. However, Yang Mu didn't take the mockery seriously, but learned something else from it. The main task of this operation is to transport supplies. The ammunition boxes piled in the armored vehicles are the supplies they are going to transport. However, when they return, they have to investigate several places where the explosions occurred yesterday. The task is not heavy and the risk factor is not high. After listening to these things, Yang Mu also silently checked his equipment again. This is Yang Mu's habit all along, carefully checking whether his equipment is in good condition. The all-terrain armored vehicle was driving fast in the desert. The bumpy feeling made Yang Mu uncomfortable, especially the mechanical exoskeleton on his body. The close-fitting parts often scratched him. This feeling was not pleasant after a long time. The 4 people in the back of the same car did not react much to the situation. Yang Mu did not recognize these people, but he was a little surprised by the mechanical exoskeletons on their bodies. Although their mechanical exoskeletons were also the forward II mechanical exoskeletons, it can be seen that these things are very old. Not only that, some parts can be clearly seen that they were processed and supplemented by themselves, and even some key places they added some designs by themselves. Yang Mu looked at their equipment and realized how bad their combat situation was. He also understood why these people argued about the equipment for so long yesterday. "Boy, your name is Yang Mu." Just as Yang Mu was looking at the people in the car, one of them with a mustache spoke. He looked to be in his 30s and looked at Yang Mu and asked. Yang Mu nodded, and the other people in the car also looked over. The man with a small mustache continued. "I heard that you are a military school student. How is it? You have no experience in such an environment," the other party said at this time. Yang Mu smiled and did not respond. "Anyway, this place is not a peaceful place. Remember to follow us closely. Get on the car immediately if there is any danger," the other party continued to speak, and Yang Mu also nodded with his mouth closed. "You military school students, I still want to say here that you must endure this hardship, so that you can know more things. As the old saying goes, practice makes perfect." The man with a small mustache did not want to stop talking and continued to speak. At this time, the person next to him spoke. "Okay, what are you talking about with others? Are you the same as them?" "That's right, they will be officers directly after they come out, and you still have to rely on them to help them," others said one after another. "Hey, yes, help, the man with a small mustache said again, but he also closed his mouth at the right time. Yang Mu was not angry at the sour tone of these people, and he also understood that these were all words they used to tease. Their living conditions here are not good, but as long as they leave here, the money they earn is enough to go back and do some good business. But behind earning this money with their lives, there may be helplessness, pain, and countless reasons." The car continued to bump, and after a while, the speed suddenly dropped. At this time, the 4 sergeants around opened the small holes on the armored vehicle, stretched out the muzzles of the electromagnetic rifles in their hands, and looked outside seriously. And Yang Mu immediately noticed the difference. He also opened the small hole next to him, stretched out the muzzle of the gun, and looked at the scene outside. The convoy has arrived at the edge of the town of Chavalin. Some local people around are standing in front of and behind their houses, watching 2 armored vehicles of the intervention corps passing by. These people did not discuss it. The eyes in their eyes were numb, and they watched the armored vehicles slowly passing by. In their eyes, Yang Mu once again saw the look of the boy and the captain on the spaceship. Numbness, suspicion, and a little hatred. Chapter 187. Entering the town. The whole carriage was silent except for the sound of breathing and the sound of vehicles driving. There was no sound coming from the communication channel. Everyone stared at the scene outside the car, which was completely different from the relaxed state before. Yang Mu was keenly aware of everyone's emotions. It seemed that they now regarded the locals outside as enemies, and they were fully armed enemies. Yang Mu also became serious and took this matter seriously. This kind of dull atmosphere seemed to indicate that the intervention corps was not welcome here. The vehicle drove slowly, and the surrounding houses retreated one by one until the last 2 armored vehicles slowly drove out of this area. The sergeants in the car breathed a sigh of relief at this time. One by one, they put their guns back and sat back. Everyone's face showed the relaxed expression before. Yang Mu looked at them, lowered his head, and did not speak, but was thinking about the current situation. He originally thought that this kind of conflict with the locals would not be so big. The locals definitely had opinions about the intervention corps, But he did not expect that this opinion might have risen to the point where the sergeants of the Intervention Corps needed to be on high alert. If that's the case, these people not only don't like me and others, but may also cause unforeseen harm to the soldiers. The danger of this place can be seen. When Yang Mu was thinking about this, the man with the mustache spoke again. Don't be too nervous, kid. A group of civilians are not a big threat to us. The man with the mustache pretended to be relaxed, but he didn't notice that his expression was the most serious when he passed the residential area before. We have to be careful of the rebel forces hidden among them. As soon as the man with the mustache said this, Yang Mu also looked up at him. This is a word he has heard many times. This rebel army seems to be very afraid of the Intervention Corps, and it seems that the rebel forces are very strong here. Yang Mu was about to ask further about the rebel army, but at this time, a voice came from the channel in the car, and it was Lao Jin's voice again. There's still 1 minute to camp number 3. After putting the things, we will go back to investigate the situation. Don't be too lax, Lao Jin's calm voice came, showing that he is actually a person who is cold on the outside but warm on the inside. The people in the car listened to the other party's voice and immediately put away the expression on their faces, and took the next thing seriously again. The vehicle slowed down again, and then slowly stopped. Yang Mu and others got off the car and found that they had arrived at another courtyard within the wall. The scenery here was similar to camp number 6, except that the bullet marks on the buildings and the cracks caused by the explosion of shells and the traces of burning around showed the cruel war that had been experienced here. In fact, on the first day of arriving at the camp, Yang Mu was very surprised why the Intervention Corps set up small strongholds instead of building a large barracks. The answer given by Black Scorpion was that these small strongholds were equivalent to outposts. The base camp of the Intervention Corps on Mocha Star was thousands of kilometers away from here. Lao Jin greeted a bearded man next to him and stood aside and said something. Others helped to move things. The people in the two camps might know each other. Some people immediately found Yang Mu's unfamiliar face and asked the sergeants of camp number 6. When they knew that Yang Mu was a military academy student who came here, their expressions changed a little. But no one came up to trouble Yang Mu, because after Lao Jin's convoy unloaded the ammunition, they called the team members to get on the car again and left the camp. Sitting back in the car, Yang Mu took a deep breath and checked his equipment again. The next thing was the most dangerous step of this mission. Checking the explosion site would mean getting off the car, and once leaving the solid fortress of the armored vehicle, the already dangerous situation would increase. Everyone in the car seemed to think so, or it might be because of long-term combat literacy. Everyone was carefully checking their equipment. Lao Jin's instructions were heard several times in the channel. The positions of the personnel were deployed. Yang Mu was assigned the simplest task, which was to stand guard by the car and keep watch for the sergeants who were exploring. After the task was deployed, the channel fell silent again. Everyone debugged the communication equipment of the mechanical exoskeleton. After a few minutes, the vehicle came to the edge of Chavalin town again. This time, the people in the car did not extend the barrel of the gun out of the shooting hole, but the atmosphere on everyone's face was more solemn than before. Yang Mu also silently pulled the safety bolt of the gun, calmly waiting for the mission to begin. The vehicle finally stopped after driving slowly for a few minutes, and at this time Yang Mu gradually heard some noisy sounds outside. It seemed that the vehicle had arrived at a relatively prosperous area in the town. At the same time, everyone's headphones also sounded Lao Jin's orders. The mission began. The heavy door at the back of the armored vehicle opened, and the mustache man got up first. The sergeants got down carefully one by one, and Yang Mu followed. The two armored vehicles are now parked at an intersection in the town. On the side of the road at the intersection, a huge crater appeared there. There were still traces of impact from the explosion on the surrounding houses. When the locals saw the soldiers wearing mechanical exoskeletons getting off the armored vehicles, the noise just now gradually stopped. Only some children were still making a fuss. Yang Mu held his rifle tightly, his eyes kept looking around, and he looked at any suspicious shooting points around him as quickly as possible, and also swept his eyes over some people standing in relatively hidden positions around him. Lao Jin led several soldiers past Yang Mu, glanced at him, and then continued to walk forward. Only one driver and one sergeant who operated the electromagnetic gun were left in the two cars. The others all got out of the car and were alert to the surrounding situation. The weather here was very hot. Yang Mu, who stood next to the vehicle, felt a little painful on his face after just a short while under the scorching sun. At this time, there were already sergeants collecting information about the surroundings of the crater. But the strange thing was that the sergeants did not seem to deal with the people around them, and the people watching around them kept silent, just staring at the sergeants with their big eyes. It was not until a few minutes later that a local in uniform came out, and Lao Jin went up to talk to him. Even though Yang Mu had rich combat experience, in this somewhat weird atmosphere, Yang Mu still looked around a little uneasily, always concerned about every corner that might be dangerous. Suddenly, Yang Mu found something poking his thigh. Yang Mu turned his head almost subconsciously, but saw a little girl of 7 or 8 years old, with 2 big braids, poking his mechanical exoskeleton with one finger. Yang Mu, who was wearing a mechanical exoskeleton, was now 2 meters tall, and his entire body size had also increased. The little girl's sudden move forward made Yang Mu feel a little relieved after he noticed it. Yang Mu looked up and looked around, then turned around slightly. The girl also noticed that the thing in front of her moved, and also looked up. Seeing the little girl's thin face, but a pair of big watery eyes, Yang Mu unconsciously thought of Lei Hong at home, and also smiled at the little girl. The other party also gave him a smile, which made Yang Mu's nervous heart relax a little, but at this time a big hand suddenly reached out and directly pulled the little girl away. Yang Mu looked up and saw a woman looking at Yang Mu vigilantly, protecting the child behind her. It seemed to be the child's mother. When she found her child next to her, she thought she would hurt the other party. Yang Mu didn't know how to explain it, so he could only smile awkwardly. But at this moment, a sergeant's urgent voice came from the communication channel of the mechanical exoskeleton. "There's a bomb in the building. It should be a dud, on the side of the wall." With a thunderous word, Yang Mu quickly raised his head and alerted the surroundings. The surrounding sergeants also raised their guns and alerted. The situation suddenly became a little urgent, and someone in the channel quickly responded. Lao Jin immediately shouted loudly for everyone to retreat and pay attention to the surroundings. Chapter 188: A Brutal Solution. Lao Jin's stern voice rang out in the communication channel, and the surrounding soldiers also reported the surrounding situation in an orderly manner. Everyone moved at this moment. Yang Mu also crouched low, raised the muzzle of his gun, and alerted the surroundings. "It's a homemade bomb, and the warhead has been buried in the soil. We don't have protective equipment. Can we use a remote-controlled robot?" The voices of several people talking continued to ring in the channel. Lao Jin walked into the house, and then walked out again a moment later, talking to the local man in uniform next to him. The two seemed to be arguing. Lao Jin didn't turn on the channel. Yang Mu stood far away and couldn't hear what the other party was saying. But at this time, a young man behind Yang Mu suddenly passed by Yang Mu. Yang Mu didn't notice it at first, but the other party pushed a mother and daughter away. Yang Mu was alert to the surroundings and immediately turned around. When he turned around, Yang Mu saw that the other party's right hand was now firmly tucked into his clothes, faintly covering something. Almost at that moment, Yang Mu's mind banged, and a thought popped up in his mind that the person in front of him might be extremely dangerous. "Stop!" Yang Mu shouted immediately, but the boy pushed away the people next to him even faster after hearing his voice, and ran to the alley next to him. "What's going on? Whose situation?" someone in the channel quickly asked. "It's the one next to the military school student." "Something is wrong," the person who stayed in the car immediately spoke up. "Yang Mu, report the situation, report the situation." Seeing the other party's sudden escape, Yang Mu didn't care about anything else and took big steps to chase after him. A young man in a brown shirt, who seems to be holding something in his hand, is running away, Yang Mu said into the headset while running after him. Everyone seemed to be shocked by this sudden change, and Lao Jin also shouted loudly in the channel at this time. "Catch him immediately, Luda, Guiz, go and help." In just a moment, the young man in brown clothes seemed to be very familiar with this place. Seeing Yang Mu blocking not far from him, he turned his head and turned into a house next to him. Yang Mu, who rushed over, knew the location of the other party's escape through the eyes of the people around him, but seeing that this was a small 3-story building, the cramped and gloomy appearance inside made Yang Mu frown. Yang Mu gritted his teeth and rushed in with a gun regardless of whether it was a trap. "Where is the person?" Yang Mu report the situation. "Lost." No response from Yang Mu. "Search immediately, 2 by 2, and kill the person immediately when you find him." "Repeat, kill him on the spot," Lao Jin shouted anxiously in the channel. But at this moment, the window on the second floor of the house next to the convoy was broken, and two figures rushed out from inside, falling on the floor with a sound. Everyone looked over immediately and found that it was Yang Mu, who was kneeling on the ground at this moment, reaching out to grab another person. Ruta, go up and support immediately. Be alert in the surrounding area, the command sounded in the channel, and two sergeants immediately rushed up from the side, and the others looked around more vigilantly. Yang Mu threw the boy to the ground, and grabbed the other's right wrist with his left hand. His eyes looked at his hand, but his ferocious face suddenly stiffened. Yang Mu, what's the situation? Answer quickly. Lao Jin's questioning voice came from the channel. Yang Mu sighed and reached out to grab the thing in the other's hand. It's the display panel in our car. This guy is a thief, Yang Mu immediately said to the headset. Just now, this guy may have taken something from the open car door while everyone was not paying attention. Take him down, interrogate him, and hand him over to the local security to deal with it. Hearing this answer, everyone was relieved. After all, the bomb had just been discovered here, and there was a suspicious person over there. If a sergeant approached the bomb at that time, he might face great danger. This made everyone nervous, but now that the situation is clear, there is less worry. Yang Mu manipulated the exoskeleton to stand up and grab the other person's hand tightly. At this time, Lu Dai also came up to help. The two handcuffed the guy and took him away. Things here came to an end for the time being. Lao Jin turned his focus to the unexploded dud bomb again. He talked to the locals for a few words, shook his head, waved his hand, and spoke again. Everyone retreat, evacuate the crowd immediately. Kayangzi put a magnetic bomb at the bomb, and the others keep a straight distance of 30 meters. Yang Mu had just escorted the boy back to the car when he heard Lao Jin's order. The surrounding sergeants and several local uniformed people began to evacuate the surrounding people at this time. Everyone was talking and the crowd was noisy. Yang Mu took the boy to the side. Lu Dao was asking him, and Yang Mu turned around and looked at the situation in the field, wanting to know what Lao Jin was going to do by issuing such an order. A moment later, the people around had been evacuated. Lao Jin strode forward. Yang Mu was still a little confused when he saw his movements. He was not wearing protective clothing and did not bring bomb disposal tools. What was he going to do by rushing forward like this? Could it be that? But before Yang Mu could guess further, Lao Jin walked to the far side of the bomb, holding a button in his left hand and taking out the electromagnetic rifle on his body with his right hand. The next second, gunshots rang out. Yang Mu saw a flash of blue light next to the bomb, and then a flash of fire. The sound of the explosion came violently, raising a 1-meter-high dust wave, and the people around screamed loudly. Lao Jin evacuated the people. It turned out to be to directly detonate the bomb. The explosion rumbled, and Yang Mu's eyes widened immediately. The building in front of him seemed very unstable under the impact of such an explosion. The bomb might have blown up the load-bearing wall. The next moment, the whole building collapsed and rumbled down. A huge cloud of dust rose again, covering everyone. The mechanical exoskeleton had no respiratory protection system, so Yang Mu had to reach out his hand and cover his mouth and nose. The huge dust slowly dissipated. Yang Mu spit out the dust in his mouth and looked carefully. The front was now much emptier. A pile of ruins appeared in front of him, and the surrounding ground was grayish-white dust. For a bomb, Lao Jin actually blew up a building. At this time, a woman suddenly rushed out, knelt on the road, and cried loudly at the collapsed house. It seemed that she should be the owner of this house. The locals in uniform pulled the woman down. Lao Jin shouted in the channel to collect the team, and the sergeants walked towards the direction of the vehicle. Yang Mu, who was standing in place, saw that the people around him were all looking at Lao Jin with hatred, but when a sergeant walked by, they immediately lowered their heads and said nothing. All this was seen by Yang Mu, and at this moment, Yang Mu understood why these locals had such an expression towards the intervention caller. In order to avoid casualties among the soldiers, Lao Jin chose to directly detonate the bomb, but this move by Lao Jin meant that everything for a person could be directly destroyed. From Lao Jin's point of view, this was reasonable, but from the point of view of the locals, all this was inhumane. Yang Mu sighed, but didn't want to argue anything, because he was wearing this military uniform. Not to mention his own position, but at least, it was meaningless for him to argue with Lao Jin about this matter at this time. Yang Mu, a soldier for many years, had done such a thing himself, and could understand the choice made by Lao Jin at this moment. Lao Jin wanted to save everyone's lives and solve this matter as soon as possible. This was the best way. It's just that such a scene makes people feel a little regretful. But that's all. Chapter 189 An Unexpected Discovery. After the bomb problem was solved, the young thief was handed over to the local security, and the whole team immediately lined up and drove to the next explosion site. No one in the car spoke. After entering this place, everyone had only one expression on their faces: serious, incomparable seriousness. Yang Mu also lowered his head, quietly waiting for the next time to get off the car and survey the scene. The sergeants conducted another exploration at the other two explosion sites, collected relevant data, and then drove back to the camp. During the whole process, there were actually some problems only at the duds, but it was also a close call, and everyone successfully completed the task. And when everyone completed the last task, on the way back, the atmosphere between everyone became relaxed again, and Yang Mu was able to chat with them for a few words. In the casual chat with him, Yang Mu also knew the name of Lao Jin, Jinsis, a small interstellar country from a business alliance, who has been on this planet for 6 years and is an old partner with Zhang Feng. Yang Mu heard the team members constantly talking about Lao Jin, and only then did he know that he had so many unknown things. He was born as a top special forces soldier and attended military school. In the end, he was demoted for accidentally killing an officer. Later, he joined the intervention corps. Because of his disagreement with his superiors, he was finally sent to such a small place. The vehicle drove on the wasteland for more than 10 minutes. As long as they crossed a small uphill slope, they could return to the camp. It was here that Yang Mu asked Lao Jin to let him get off the cart to check the surrounding situation. Lao Jin was silent for a moment, but finally agreed, asked everyone in the second cart to stay, and took Yang Mu to look around the camp. It was still early, and the sun was shining brightly, bringing rolling heat waves to the ground. Yang Mu walked out of the armored car and looked up. Looking far away, there were mountains in the distance, but these mountains were only one color, withered yellow. Only in the distant town were there dots of green light, and in the surrounding area, Yatan landforms appeared endlessly, and there were gullies exposed by weathered rocks everywhere. Yang Mu looked at them one by one, but he saw some different places. The location of Camp Number 6 is next to a small valley. From this location, the situation of the town of Chavlin can be clearly observed, but at the same time, the surrounding mountains can also provide shelter, which can not only reduce some of the temperature, but also block some attacks. When Yang Mu looked to the side, he found that there was a pile of debris scattered behind a hillside on a wasteland. It seemed that it should be the wreckage of some spacecraft. "What is there?" Yang Mu asked the little mustache next to him. The little mustache looked over, then lowered his head, and the expression on his face was a little reluctant. Yang Mu looked at him and understood that this place might have other meanings to them. It was the third team of our camp, 15 people, who were shot down by Fixing. The little mustache frowned and said with some reluctance. Fixing. Yang Mu was a little curious because he had never heard of this name. It's a laser-guided missile, developed by the Mocha people themselves, but it was eventually learned by the rebels, the mustache said with some melancholy. Although they said that the missile's hit was accidental, but I've never seen a missile this long, but it can shoot down a spaceship hundreds of meters long with an energy shield turned on, just one shot, the mustache said, gesturing with his hands to show a length of half a meter, and said with great surprise and unwillingness. Could it be that it hit a key position? Yang Mu was also a little bit unbelievable about such a thing, frowning and trying to explain. The mustache shook his head and said, I thought so at first, but later, I found this. As he said this, the mustache took off a necklace from his neck. There was a piece of silver-gray metal on it, in an irregular oval shape, shining with strange brilliance in the sun. I found it there by chance. At that time, there was a piece of missile shrapnel stuck on it, so I picked it up. Yang Mu reached out to take the thumb-sized piece of metal, looked at it carefully, and picked his eyes, but he found something different. When I took it back to forge it, I found that it was completely different from other metals. The metal shells next to it melted, but its shape did not change at all. Its hardness is harder than titanium alloy, or even any alloy material. It took me 3 months to smooth out the edges and corners around it, and I broke several hammers during that time. The mustache said this, and there was also surprise in his eyes about this thing, but there seemed to be something deeper in it. So I believe that this is not accidental. The death of my best friend was a deliberate murder. The mustache looked into the distance, as if he was recalling something. There was a sad expression on his face, but more of it was anger. Perhaps in that accident, he lost a good friend. Yang Mu, who was rubbing the metal disc, seemed to see something else. Others might not recognize this small piece of metal in his hand, but Yang Mu remembered it deeply. This is the important metal material for the Annihilation engine that he has always wanted to find, Yaodi. Something that is hundreds of times harder than alloy materials. Although it looks ordinary, it is the most important metal mixed in his engine and weapons. It can increase the attack power of his mecha by several times. Unexpectedly, this material that he thought he could only find in the laboratory now appears alive in front of him. From the other party's words, we can know that this thing is produced on this planet, and it seems that the people on this planet have mastered the technology of how to purify and refine this material. Yang Mu couldn't help but tremble a little. This material that can even bring about a technological revolution is much earlier than he knew. And if such a thing can be applied to military equipment on a large scale as soon as possible, it will bring huge changes to the army. Yang Mu's heart was surging. The mustache also saw Yang Mu's state and asked several questions before Yang Mu came back to his senses. Oh, sorry. My condolences. Yang Mu reluctantly handed the things in his hand to the other party. The little mustache looked at Yang Mu deeply for a few times, but he didn't care too much about Yang Mu's expression. Instead, he suddenly turned around and pointed in a direction. Speaking of this, I also want to tell you something else, kid. This is an important thing. Do you see that direction? Yang Mu looked at the place where the other party pointed. There was a severely eroded gully area, behind the right side of camp number 6. Remember, if you have to escape one day, go there, the little mustache said meaningfully. Yang Mu turned his head and looked at the place carefully. The terrain there is indeed suitable for long-distance operations. At the same time, the natural environment has severely eroded the place. In some places, you can see pits and holes, which can completely avoid various attacks. Why do you say that? Yang Mu asked. The little mustache laughed twice, turned around, and walked towards the armored vehicle. This is the survival principle of Moko Star. Always remember to leave yourself a way out. This is a lesson learned with the blood. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 190, Deeper Speculations. Yang Mu returned to the camp and took off his equipment and put it in the warehouse. When he came out, Yang Mu had some ideas of his own. The things that Ziohuzi said gave Yang Mu too many things. Now, Yang Mu knew the news about Yao Tai. This very important thing immediately made Yang Mu more interested in the next mission on Moko Star. Regardless of whether this matter was related to his assessment task, Yang Mu decided to try to find it. Thinking of this, Yang Mu didn't even have time to say hello to Quinn upstairs, and ran to find Zhang Feng. Zhang Feng was reading documents in the conference room on the first floor at this moment. Yang Mu walked straight in. Zhang Feng also noticed Yang Mu's movements and turned around. Hey, our top student has finished his investigation? What's the matter? Zhang Feng put down the panel in his hand, turned his head and asked Yang Mu with interest. Yang Mu didn't care about the other party's jokes, smiled, and walked towards him. Zhang Feng also pulled a chair and motioned Yang Mu to sit down. Yang Mu looked at the other party and did not refuse. He sat upright on the chair and looked up at Zhang Feng. Zhang Feng was originally very casual about Yang Mu's coming in, but when he looked up and saw Yang Mu's sharp eyes, he was suddenly a little confused and stunned for a moment. What's wrong? Is there something wrong? Zhang Feng patted his thigh and looked at Yang Mu seriously. Yang Mu looked at the other party with a serious face, but it was not easy to speak directly, because the matter of Yaodi was not so easy to explain clearly, and Yang Mu did not think it was necessary to let the other party know about that kind of thing. So Yang Mu prepared to ask this question indirectly. Yang Mu looked at Zhang Feng and said, Sir, I just went out with the team members to take a look and found a pile of old wreckage in the distance. They said it was the remains of the original spacecraft. Zhang Feng nodded when he heard Yang Mu say this, but did not speak, which was also regarded as tacitly agreeing with this matter. I am very curious, what kind of small missile can shoot down a spacecraft? Yang Mu led his question to a deeper point, but Zhang Feng lowered his head and shut up to think for a while, and finally said, We have no way to explain this matter, but at that time, We did see only a small missile fired, and finally shot down the spaceship, according to the Moko Star Army. This is a missile called a flying star, but they said that the missiles they have do not have this type of attack power. Zhang Feng paused and continued. This kind of thing actually happened twice, not far from here. After that, the Intervention Corps no longer sent transport ships directly to this side, but used local ships to transport supplies and personnel. Wait, you mean, that missile is different? Yang Mu keenly grasped the key to the problem. This is obvious. A missile with radiant iron material must be different from an ordinary missile. Zhang Feng shook his head, saying that he didn't know what the reason was. We didn't get a result for this either. Later, the answers given by the Intervention Corps superiors and the Moko Star Army were also unclear, and the final result could not be obtained. Faced with Zhang Feng's response, Yang Mu was silent again. It was really difficult to continue this topic. But at this time, Zhang Feng suddenly spoke again. Forget it, let's talk about something else. I'm going to take you on a mission tomorrow. You can also check the mine's information on your personal terminal. Yang Mu didn't expect Zhang Feng to directly lead the topic to a point that Yang Mu was very concerned about, so he asked quickly. What's the situation over there? I don't know. A few days ago, a person in charge of the mine called us and asked us to arrange personnel to do security work, but less than 2 days later, we received a search order from the headquarters. By the way, we will go on a mission tomorrow. You and Quinn should prepare more. When he said this, Zhang Feng changed the subject and talked about this. Yang Mu was stunned for a moment and nodded. At this time, a sergeant came to find Zhang Feng. Zhang Feng stood up and went out. Yang Mu couldn't stay here any longer, so he stood up and walked out together. But at least at this moment, Yang Mu knew something more. Yang Mu felt that the clues he wanted to find might be in the mine that was not far away from here. After walking out of the meeting room, Yang Mu ran into Quinn, who was strolling outside. The other party also saw him immediately and walked over quickly. Yang Mu, why didn't you call me when you went out today? Quinn said to Yang Mu, seeming to be very dissatisfied with the fact that Yang Mu did not hand him over with him. Yang Mu grinned, not knowing how to explain, stretched out his hand and patted the other party's shoulder, and said, I didn't want to wake you up when I saw you were still sleeping. No, why didn't you let me go on such an important mission? Quinn continued to ask. Yang Mu sighed, somewhat helplessly hooked the other party's shoulder, and said to him again, this matter is not as simple as you think. Let me tell you about these things. Yang Mu pulled the other party aside, sat in a cool place, and talked about what happened during the time he was out. Yang Mu's idea was also to let the other party know more things, and more importantly, Yang Mu emphasized to remind Quinn about the locals. Yang Mu told Quinn about the transportation of ammunition and the things he had checked in the town. Quinn was even more surprised, but he also complained more about why Yang Mu didn't wake him up and go out with him. It seemed that he had suffered a loss because he had not experienced these things. Yang Mu didn't know what to say, so he could only change the subject and take him to do the maintenance of the mechanical exoskeleton. At the same time, Zhang Feng, who was standing next to the sand net on one side at the foot of the wall, was talking to the blonde old Jin. Old Jin took out a cigarette and handed it to Zhang Feng. Zhang Feng didn't take it, so old Jin took it back and smoked by himself. You said the explosions in the 3 places are the same? Everything is the same. Zhang Feng looked at him seriously and said. Old Jin nodded, looked up at him, and exhaled the smoke from his mouth. Not only that, after calculating the relevant data, these bombs with small explosive equivalents have a short range. After distance measurement, they should all come from the direction of the mine. Exhaling a puff of smoke, old Jin said slowly, and Zhang Feng's eyes twitched. It turned out to be from the mine. It seems that something really happened there. Could it be that the place was really occupied by the rebels? Chapter 191 full of flaws. Check all your equipment again, have the mines and traps in the wall bin set up. On the morning of the 3rd day, Zhang Feng, wearing an exoskeleton, was standing in the field fully armed. Looking at the 29 team members standing neatly in the field, he said solemnly. Early this morning, Zhang Feng called everyone together to prepare for today's mine search and rescue mission. The mine matter can no longer be delayed. There are many signs that this matter is urgent. Last night, Zhang Feng called everyone to hold a meeting overnight and carefully arrange today's tasks. Camp number 6 will search the mine that has lost contact with camp number 3 together. Yang Mu and Quinn checked their equipment, took a few deep breaths, and gave each other an encouraging look. This is the third day since the two came here, and it is also the beginning of the assessment mission. Reiterating his order again, Zhang Feng ordered everyone to get on the car. A jeep and 3 armored vehicles full of sergeants left the camp. The entire camp became an empty camp at this moment. As for the unmanned camp at the moment, the important military equipment inside has been taken away, and the rest has been hidden. There are also many booby traps around it, and anyone who suddenly breaks in will be hit hardest. The vehicle rushed towards the direction of the town. The mine is not far behind the town, located in the rolling mountains. The surrounding mountainous terrain is not suitable for vehicles to cross long distances, so they can only risk passing through the town of Chavalin. There is a narrow road behind the town of Chavalin, through which you can directly reach the mine. It's just that the narrow road is several hundred meters long, so this plan is obviously very risky, but this is the fastest way to get there. The situation is urgent, and Zhang Feng has to let everyone take the risk to pass through here. When the vehicle arrived at the edge of the town, the atmosphere in the vehicle suddenly changed. Everyone's face was tense. Although their eyes could not see the outside of the armored vehicle, they were always paying attention to the situation outside. At the same time, the speed of the vehicle was slowly slowing down. Yang Yu could already hear the occasional voices coming from outside. It was the first time that Quinn, who was standing next to him, had encountered such a situation. He looked at Yang Mu with a little uneasiness in his eyes. Yang Mu knew that he was a little nervous, so he reached out and gently hammered his thigh, and gave him a look that said it was okay. The vehicle continued to move forward, and the noise outside gradually weakened. In the end, only the sound of the vehicle was left. At this time, the vehicle accelerated again, and everyone was moving forward rapidly in the bumps. The team's vehicle accelerated at this time in order to pass through the narrow road in the fastest time. Because they didn't know if there were any spies in the town, they did this so that they could pass as quickly as possible before the other party was ready for an ambush. The vehicle quickly passed through this narrow road, and soon the speed was reduced again. At the same time, Zhang Feng's voice came from everyone's earphones. Turn on the gun safety, the second team is ready to get off the car, and the first team is on standby. The reinforcements for camp number 3 have not arrived yet. The main task is reconnaissance. And we must not launch an attack easily, this was the plan made before. When they reached the edge of the mine, the second team would move over from a distance to ensure that they would not be wiped out by the other party. The first team, led by Zhang Feng, broke in from the other side of the mine, attacking from both sides, which would create more advantages for themselves. Originally, there was also camp number 3 breaking in from the other side, but the other party was still on the way, so they slowed down the process to avoid alerting the enemy. The vehicle stopped the next moment, and the sound of wheels rubbing against the ground sounded. With Lao Jin's order to get off, Yang Mu nodded to Quinn next to him and got off the car. Yang Mu was assigned to the second team, while Quinn followed the first team. Quinn also pursed his lips and gave Yang Mu an encouragement. After the team got off the car, Yang Mu immediately manipulated the mechanical exoskeleton to quickly catch up with the team rushing towards the mountain next to him. A team of people was approaching the mine quickly from the other side. Not far away was a mine on the hillside. This mine was a semi-open air mine. On one side were mines dug out from various metal materials, and on the other side was a flat site for refining metal waste. The entire hillside was like a plate inserted in the middle of the hillside. The exposed rocks around the mine reflected dazzling white light under the sun. Yang Mu's eyes were a little sore from the bright light, but he also slowly approached the mine. The sniper finds his own position, the communication stays, and the others split into 2 sides and move forward from the left and right. At this time, Lao Jin was still calmly issuing orders. Yang Mu and the little mustache walked on one side and slowly touched down from the right. At this time, Yang Mu also saw a group of people wearing black mechanical exoskeletons moving forward at the foot of the mountain not far away. It was the team led by Zhang Feng. Farther away, there was another cloud of dust. With a voice coming from the channel, Yang Mu knew that it was the people from camp number 3 coming over. Everyone was approaching the target mine quickly from different places. But at this moment, the entire mine was silent. There was no sound around, and the entire mine was dead silent, which seemed very strange in broad daylight. Yang Mu followed the team down. The team had approached the only place where they could hide in the mine, a camp built on the mountain, which was the residence of the workers of the mining company. And the next moment, when the mustache wanted to move forward, Yang Mu suddenly pulled him back, hid under a huge rock next to him, and then made a stop gesture to the back, and said in the channel, "There is someone, there is a figure in the place covered by the white cloth at 11 o'clock. Yang Mu quickly observed this situation. Just now, his eyes were hurt by the white door, so he glanced over there, but saw half a figure flashing quickly. Just in that second, Yang Mu immediately realized that it was a person passing by. The whole team stopped when Yang Mu said this, and each found a cover to hide their bodies. Zhang Feng also immediately asked Lao Jin in the channel whether he could see the specific situation. But that place was originally blocked by buildings, and there was a rock wall behind it. The angle was tricky and the situation inside could not be seen clearly. After observing for a long time, Lao Jin could only shake his head to indicate that there was no way. But just when he was thinking of a new way, a foot wearing a boot came out of it. Yang Mu almost instantly raised the muzzle of the gun and pointed it at that place. At the same time, the people around him also made the same action, and the sound of the mechanical exoskeleton operating came one after another. "Are you brothers from the Intervention Corps? Don't get excited. I'm the person in charge of the mine." At this time, a somewhat timid voice sounded, and then Yang Mu saw a not-so-tall voice coming out of it, dirty and slowly walking out. The conversation between Lao Jin and Zhang Feng sounded again in the channel, and finally Lao Jin confirmed the identity of this person. He was one of the persons in charge of the mine. After confirming, Lao Jin did not speak, but Zhang Feng, who was standing on the other side of the hillside facing the other party, stood up. The two people were communicating at a long distance, and Yang Mu, who was squatting on one side, gradually understood the explanation of the person in charge. They said that they originally wanted Zhang Feng to come over to help protect a batch of refined metals to be transported, but the plan was advanced, so they sent it away first. At the same time, their communication equipment was broken, and the equipment in the mine was also damaged these days. They had been repairing the equipment and did not notify Camp Number 6. Finally, they thanked everyone for coming and asked everyone to go back immediately. They had repaired it and were about to start working. At this point, Yang Mu's face had already revealed a stern look. These words were full of loopholes, and they were completely trying to cover up the truth. The communication equipment was broken, and they could have driven here to report the situation. Moreover, why did the mining equipment break down when the communication equipment broke down? If only one or two of them broke down, it would not matter. Why did the entire mine stop working? Today is a sunny day, and it is a good time to work. Why did everyone stop working and stay in the shed on such a good day? All of this made Yang Mu see the flaw immediately. It seems that there is something fishy there. Maybe these people are really in trouble. Just as Yang Mu finished thinking about these things, Quinn's voice sounded in the channel. He also immediately noticed the flaw and immediately raised it. But strangely, when Quinn finished speaking, Zhang Feng and Lao Jin did not respond. Zhang Feng was still chatting with that person. After a moment, Zhang Feng seemed to have finished chatting with that person. He waved his hand, turned around, and then spoke in the channel. Everyone retreat. Yang Mu and the others did not move, because Lao Jin also said at this time, Team 2, stay where you are. Yang Mu grinned when he heard this order, because he already understood what Zhang Feng and Lao Jin were going to do. "Oh, I don't know why I am in such a bad state today, please forgive me." Chapter 192, Twists and Turns. When Lao Jin shouted this, it meant that Zhang Feng and Lao Jin had reached a consensus that they would use a disguise trick to sneak into Changkang. Now it seems that they knew the problem early on and knew that all the things that the person in charge said were problematic. Something must have happened in the mine. The other party pushed a person from the mine to save the situation. To put it bluntly, it was to fool the people of the Intervention Corps. But it backfired. These things showed that there was no silver here. All this showed that the mine was controlled by someone. It was just that the person in control, whether it was the rebels or someone else, was unknown. But even though the current situation showed the urgent situation in the mine, Zhang Feng still did not blindly choose to attack directly, and the purpose of this might be to preserve the lives of other people who might still be alive in the mine. Of course, it also included the life of the man in front of him. Yang Mu carefully lurked and waited for further orders. At this time, Lao Jin also said in the channel again that Yang Mu should not act rashly. But the next moment, when Zhang Feng, who was in the open, had already led Team 1 and the people from Camp 3 who had come from afar to evacuate, the person in charge of the mine did not relax his vigilance, but turned around and rushed towards Yang Mu. Through the sniper's shared screen, Yang Mu saw the other party's expression on the screen. He seemed to be a little nervous, with a stiff expression on his face, and his eyes were scanning the hillside behind him. Yang Mu's heart skipped a beat, and the other party really spoke the next second. "Brothers here, please retreat as well. It's really okay. Thank you for your hard work." What the other party suddenly said in the direction of Team 2 shocked everyone. Team 2 was originally the main attacking team. In order to ensure the suddenness of the attack, they had always been hiding well. But now the other party actually revealed their hiding? Although they were still a little shocked in their hearts, they still held back and did not move, and did not expose their bodies. Because this might be a conspiracy, maybe this person was just cheating, and he wanted to cheat everyone's position in this way. But the next moment, before everyone could continue to hide in the ambush, the person in charge pointed directly at the specific location and shouted loudly. Behind the big white stone in front, and next to the pile of rubble on the hillside, "Comrade, I saw the reflection of your sniper scope. If you don't believe me, I'll come over here." Such a sentence and the other party's actions finally shook everyone's faith. Zhang Feng's words rang out in the channel, asking everyone to retreat immediately. The sudden change caught everyone off guard, especially the other party was able to see where everyone was hiding, which was really incredible. But from the side, this also proved another thing. That is, there's indeed a fraud here. Apart from anything else, the other party is just a small person in charge, but he was able to recognize it directly, and said that he saw the reflection of the sniper rifle. The location chosen by the sniper was not the highest shooting point, but a point close to the mine, in order to better support the operation. This unusual arrangement is definitely impossible for non-professionals to discover. Now that the other party has so easily said this location, it means that there must be someone behind the scenes who is instructing. The man in front of him was just a puppet who relayed other people's words. But even so, Lao Jin still ordered everyone to retreat. Although he knew that the other party's words were full of unreality, everyone retreated one by one in the end. This was the first time Yang Mu encountered such a situation. The environment of the entire mine seemed to be completely known by the other party, and his actions were all in his sight. The troops who returned to the mine and assembled in the distance were a little discouraged, but they could only stand in formation and wait for Zhang Feng's instructions. The people from camp number 3 also came over at this time. They drove over a jeep and an armored vehicle, carrying a small team of soldiers, and also formed a team next to them to follow Zhang Feng's arrangements. Zhang Feng was leaning against the armored vehicle with a large projection panel at this moment, carefully checking the mine topographic map on it. Everyone saw that he didn't say anything, and Lao Jin also stood aside without saying anything. The venue was a little depressed, but still silently waiting for the next instruction. After a while, Zhang Feng and Lao Jin seemed to have discussed something, and at the same time, they reached a certain understanding with the team leader who came to support. They put away the panel and looked at Yang Mu and others. Yang Mu looked up at Zhang Feng with his chest held high, waiting for his order. Zhang Feng stepped forward at this time and said to everyone, "Stand at attention, collect the team and return to the camp." Hearing Zhang Feng's order, everyone was suddenly a little surprised. Quinn also showed a surprised expression at this time. He didn't expect why the carefully prepared combat mission would be cancelled at this time. But everyone did not disobey Zhang Feng's order. One by one, they lined up to get on the car. However, when everyone got into the armored vehicle, Zhang Feng's voice sounded again in the channel. "The mission has changed." Everyone listened carefully to the deployment. As soon as he got on the car, Zhang Feng told everyone another plan. It turned out that the previous actions were just to confuse the people in the mine. The answer discussed by Zhang Feng and others was that the combat plan would continue and the task of searching the mine would still be carried out. As for the way to proceed, some changes need to be made. First, when the vehicle passes through the narrow road, the terrain there can easily block the realization. The personnel on the armored vehicle quickly get off there, leaving the least number of people to drive the vehicle back, creating the illusion of the troops retreating. But at the same time, this is only the first step, because the other party cannot fail to realize that the troops' retreat may be a scam, and martial law will definitely be extended tonight. At this time, the second step of the plan is crucial. The attack plan is postponed to 3:30 tomorrow morning and before dawn. So now everyone will choose a place far away from the mine to ambush and rest, waiting for the arrival of night. At that time, people will be the most slack, and then they will directly break into it, which will definitely achieve the best results. After listening to Zhang Feng's plan, everyone was relieved. And Qin also looked at Yang Mu, and seemed to be very calm. When Yang Mu knew about this plan, he also agreed with a command level of several people. Although it was just a small team, it also played some military command. The vehicle drove quickly to the canyon area. With Zhang Feng's order, the vehicle slowed down, the door of the armored vehicle opened, and the soldiers wearing mechanical exoskeletons jumped down one after another. When everyone got off the car, they quickly moved towards the cliffs on both sides and assembled under the cliffs. After a few minutes, except for the 5 people who drove back, the remaining 40 people stood up. Zhang Feng divided the team into 2 queues and selected 2 locations that were some distance away from the mine on his personal terminal. The team went out of the valley one by one and headed towards the mine. It was still morning and there was still a long time before dark. Everyone tacitly began to replenish their energy to ensure that they were physically fit in order to cope with the next combat mission that might last for more than 10 or 20 hours. Chapter 193 Yang Mu's Concerns. The night was getting darker, and time had already come to night before we knew it. The night on Mocha Star did not seem to be as violent as the day. The flying sand and rocks had completely stopped tonight. At this moment, we could even see 2 bright moons hanging in the corner of the sky. I heard from the locals that the 2 moons, the big one is called Su, and the small one is called Me. The man with a mustache sat on the ground next to Yang Mu wearing a mechanical exoskeleton and handed the compressed biscuits in his hand to Yang Mu. It means the king and the minister, because the small moon is always around the big one. The man with a mustache looked up at the sky and said. Yang Mu also looked at the sky, without replying, but just took a bite of the compressed biscuits, then took a sip of water from the water bag on the exoskeleton behind him. What a beautiful scenery, but the people on this planet don't have time to enjoy it all. The man with a mustache still talked to himself, lying on the stone ground next to him, looking up at the sky. Yang Mu was about to take a break, but Quin's voice came from the headset. Yang Mu, you better be careful. Quin's serious voice came from the headset. Yang Mu hummed, indicating that he would be more careful, and reminded the other party to pay more attention to the surrounding situation. The other party also hummed, and the channel fell silent again. Under the cliff, the second team where Yang Mu was divided during the task division will be an important part of this mission, responsible for rescuing the hostages who may survive. The first team led by Zhang Feng will be responsible for leading out the controlling forces in the mine to create opportunities for Yang Mu and others. On the surface, this is the team where Qin and others are in more danger, but the truth is that Yang Mu's team will go deeper into the mine, and will encounter more unpredictable dangers. The various obstacles there may bring unexpected dangers. Obviously, Qin also knows this problem, and is also giving Yang Mu a reminder now, hoping that Yang Mu will pay more attention to safety. Of course, there is another reason. The mustache saw Yang Mu talking to Qin, and immediately raised his eyebrows and said to Yang Mu, "What? Are you worried about your teammates' safety, or are your teammates worried about your safety?" Yang Mu turned his head and looked at the other party, and said calmly, "After all, this is a military operation, and your own safety should be put first." When the little mustache heard Yang Mu say this, he raised his eyebrows again and nodded, indicating that he agreed with Yang Mu's idea, but he still opened his mouth to continue. "That's what I said, but there are some dangers, and sometimes it's hard to avoid. It depends more on your response speed on the spot, and whether you can shoot faster than the other party." The little mustache stretched out his hand and made a pistol shape. Yang Mu nodded, indicating that he agreed with the other party's statement. "Okay, do whatever the captain tells you to do. Here, he doesn't care whether you are a top student or not." The little mustache looked at Yang Mu's cold look, sighed, sat up, patted Yang Mu on the shoulder, said this, and got up and left. Yang Mu was stunned for a moment when he heard the other party's words, and his expression did not change. Instead, he took out his personal terminal again and looked at the map of the entire mine carefully again. Before, Yang Mu thought that this mission was relatively simple, and he and these soldiers should be able to solve it smoothly. But the problem is that after the incident in the morning, Yang Mu had different ideas. Yang Mu, who has always been cautious, began to feel that something was wrong, from the other side's discovery of his ambush to everyone's analysis of the things in the mine. No matter what he did, Yang Mu always felt that something was wrong. But what exactly was going on, Yang Mu couldn't tell. This thing was like Yang Mu's sixth sense, or intuition. After so many years of military experience, Yang Mu always felt that there were strange situations here. In particular, Zhang Feng and Lao Jin carefully emphasized the seriousness of the matter to everyone, but Yang Mu found a big problem. That is, Zhang Feng and Lao Jin did not leave a backhand for the team, or arranged for someone to meet on the way of retreat. Although they have realized that the people in the mine may be the forces of the rebels, they seem to think that with their own efforts and tactics, they can take these people down in one fell swoop and win this battle. And not only they think so, but also other soldiers in the team think so. This is a kind of quietly pervasive emotion. Only Yang Mu and Quinn, who have been here for a short time, can feel the emotion beyond this atmosphere. Perhaps they have not suffered any combat failures here, so they have such a thought. But Yang Mu doesn't like this feeling, so he also raised this question later, but in the end it was rejected by Zhang Feng and others, because they think that this will disperse the troops, and they will not be able to take down the entire mine in one fell swoop, which will put everyone in an unknown dangerous situation. Even though Yang Mu insisted, he couldn't resist the other party in the end and could only obey the other party's orders, so now, Yang Mu will sit here with some melancholy. Quinn and Xiao Huzi also comforted themselves in this way. After taking a deep breath, Yang Mu shook his head and decided not to dwell on this matter anymore, but to change another method. He took the initiative to carefully record the terrain here in his mind and planned several different retreat routes for everyone. It can also be regarded as preparing for a rainy day. Of course, it would be best if all this was just his own unfounded worries. The previous map terrain was basically memorized in his mind. This was the basic skill of Yang Mu in learning battlefield command. Now Yang Mu stood up to see the specific situation of these places. It was 8 o'clock in the evening. There were more than 7 hours before the attack was launched. Yang Mu wanted to take a closer look before taking a rest. As he said, Yang Mu used the image of the night vision device to see the surrounding situation clearly. The mine in the distance, he was now in a valley on the left wing. Zhang Feng and others went to the right wing. There was a gentle slope in front of the mine. The terrain did not have too much cover, which was not easy to defend, but also difficult to attack. As for the top of the mountain where the mine was located, there was a reverse slope behind it. The slope was very steep, and any movement could be detected immediately. At the same time, it was not a place for retreat. In this way, the route planning had to focus on the two wings of the mine. Yang Mu looked far away and planned for a long time. Finally, he made a conclusion in his mind. At this time, Zhang Feng also ordered everyone to take turns to rest. Yang Mu had to return to the hiding place and prepare to have a good rest. The temperature on Moko Star in summer is not high at night. Because they don't know if there will be any special situation, everyone is ordered not to take off the mechanical exoskeleton to rest. Yang Mu also half leaned against a big rock to rest, and the mechanical rubbing on his back made him feel uncomfortable. At the same time, the dew at night was very heavy, and the whole body was soon wet and sticky. This night, no one rested well. When the time came to 3:30 in the morning, everyone was woken up and quietly lined up in the valley, debugged the mechanical exoskeleton, confirmed the battle plan, and improved everyone's division of tasks. Everyone stared in the dark, waiting for the next action. Next, it will be a moment of life and death, and everyone's breathing became heavy, with a trace of tension. A few minutes later, Zhang Feng's order to start the action sounded in the channel. Lao Jin waved his hand, and everyone turned off the night vision goggles on the mechanical exoskeleton and walked towards the direction of the mine. Chapter 194 Entry and Mutation. Team 1, pay attention to tracer bullets. Handheld rifles are not used. The machine guns on board fire 1 round per 4 rounds. Team 2, pay attention to keeping quiet. The distance between teams should not be too close. Snipers report the situation at all times. If you encounter hostages, check whether they are safe first. In the channel, the voices of Zhang Feng and Lao Jin came one after another. The two were making the final arrangements for everyone, and everyone was moving forward cautiously. In camp number 6, Zhang Feng was a calm and steady person. Although he did not have a very brilliant combat arrangement, he was calm and his temperament could always play a role in stabilizing people's hearts. Lao Jin was a person who was good at combat. He could carefully analyze many things and put forward some very constructive combat arrangements. His previous military experience enabled him to better provide good combat for his teammates. The two complemented each other, and under the joint action, the whole team has always maintained a good morale. Yang Mu followed carefully in the middle of the team. Team 2 was now sneaking in from the left wing, but they needed to wait in the middle for a while because they needed Team 1 to open fire and attract the other side's people. At this time, the enemy's troops must be very tired. Even if they have made some arrangements, they will definitely be in a mess because of the sudden attack. At the same time, their mental state will not be very good, which will make it easier for Zhang Feng and others to break through. This is a very simple battle plan. In such a place, as long as the enemy is really just a rebel army with some strength as they say, there will be no problem. Yang Mu's team carefully hid in a depression in a stone field. Everyone's radio was silent at this time, and everyone was waiting for Zhang Feng to launch an attack. Just when everyone was in position, Yang Mu saw a flash of fire on the hillside in the distance through the night vision device. It was a missile used by a single soldier. Only 2 super heavy mechanical exoskeletons in the team were equipped with it. The whistling sound and fire brought by the missile engine rose from the hillside and then hit the mine over there. The fire and sound of the explosion were earth-shaking, but the missile only hit the mining area on the outer edge of the mine. Such an explosion was just to track the enemy out. Sure enough, as soon as the sound of the explosion and the flames disappeared, the entire mine suddenly became noisy, and 1 or 2 gunshots were heard from time to time. It was unknown whether the people inside had accidentally fired or realized the attack of the intervention corps and began to massacre the hostages. Yang Mu's heart tightened, and Zhang Feng immediately realized this problem and asked Team 1 to start the attack, hoping that the other side would come out to fight immediately. The sound of gunfire and voices rang out, and Yang Mu also saw the situation in the mine through the night vision goggles. There were now more than a dozen people rushing out of the mine, and the weapons in each person's hands were of different lengths and types. The postures of hurried running and panic shooting showed that they were almost impossible to talk about combat literacy. Team 1 quickly suppressed the firepower of those people. After waiting for a few minutes, Lao Jin also issued an order and Team 2 began to attack. Yang Mu quickly operated a mechanical exoskeleton and stepped forward. Like the others, he carefully walked from the side of the mountain and approached the row of sheds in the mine step by step. On the other side, the fierce firepower of the first team was suppressing the other side. Yang Mu could even hear the roars of the armed bandits in the distance. A moment later, the 20 people of the second team had approached the shed. Lao Jin made a stop gesture, and everyone immediately stopped and waited for Lao Jin's next order. Lao Jin walked forward alone, carefully looked with the airborne thermal imaging instrument, and then made a few gestures to the crowd. Enter separately, 3 people in a group. Everyone understood and immediately formed a 3-person team, leaving 5 people outside to respond, and the rest of the people entered one by one through several gaps in the shed. This time, Yang Mu walked in front and entered from a gap next to the gathering place, which was close to the edge of the mountain. It was quiet inside, and everything displayed on the night vision device was green, and Yang Mu had not seen any human figures. There was no corpse either. Yang Mu walked in carefully. This settlement area has an area of thousands of square meters. There are many machines and various mining-related things inside. It is very messy. Wearing a mechanical exoskeleton, you need to be very careful when moving inside, otherwise it may make too much noise and be known by the other party. Because of the dispersed search, Yang Mu, Zhao Huzi and another sergeant walked along the edge of the rock. It was not long after they entered. When Zhao Huzi and another sergeant passed by 2 tall iron sheds, Yang Mu stopped. What's wrong? What did you find? Zhao Huzi quickly found that something was wrong with Yang Mu and turned around carefully to ask. Yang Mu pointed to the iron sheet next to him, indicating that there was something, then turned around, bent down, and hooked a large iron sheet with a hook on the mechanical arm. A creaking sound suddenly sounded, and Zhao Huzi immediately stopped Yang Mu's action, and then looked around vigilantly, but at this time Yang Mu reached out and patted the other party. The mustache looked over with some confusion, but he saw directly behind the iron sheet. From the perspective of the night vision goggles, it was a hole less than 3 meters high. The 3 people's eyes were full of surprise at this moment, and the mustache quickly told Lao Jin about this situation. When Lao Jin knew about this situation, he also asked the 3 people not to move and wait for their arrival. Yang Mu carefully pulled the iron sheet open again, and the dark hole appeared in front of everyone. Lao Jin and others who heard the news also looked at this thing and were surprised. This is a hole dug out on the mountain wall, and it was specially covered with iron sheets. There must be something different inside. Lao Jin made a gesture to everyone, and then walked in carefully. Several people behind him also followed, and the rest continued to search in the warehouse outside. Because they didn't know if there was any ambush or trap, everyone turned on the tactical flashlight to the strongest light mode and carefully entered it. Inside was a small passage for only 2 people to pass. After walking for a minute or two, the front was suddenly open. I saw that deep inside the mountain wall, there was a place of more than 20 square meters. On the ground here, there were many ores and some machinery and equipment. There was a ventilation pipe next to it, which was connected to a certain place above the head. Several people carefully investigated whether there was anyone hiding in this space, and Lao Jin frowned at these operating tables. At this time, Yang Mu, who was walking on the side, felt that something was wrong with his feet. He lowered his head and swept it with his feet, and found a huge iron box buried on the ground. Everyone hurried over, and Yang Mu also stretched out his hand to open it after careful observation. The next moment, a box of bullets appeared in front of everyone. These are bullets that have not been completely polished and formed. The shape is a bit like a cylinder. There are almost thousands of bullets in a whole box, shining brightly under the light. Everyone was a little confused. Yang Mu picked up a bullet and looked at these things carefully for a moment. The expression on his face suddenly became a little shocked. At the same time, the mustache behind him seemed to recognize this thing, and his expression on his face was also surprised. This thing is the same as the one on my necklace. The man with a mustache pulled out the necklace around his neck and showed the oval metal piece to everyone. Everyone showed surprise on their faces, and Lao Jin suddenly realized what the machines were used for. They were machines used to make bullets. A whole box of Yaodi was used to make bullet heads. Something bad came to Yang Mu's mind. At this moment, calls from other members of the second team in the warehouse came from the channel. Report, hostages found. Repeat, hostages found. The voice sounded, and after a whimper, a violent voice suddenly sounded in the channel, very anxious and terrified. Go. This is a conspiracy. It's the rebels. The sudden roar made everyone's expression change again, and the next moment, the voice of a team suddenly came from the channel. There is an ambush. Someone is injured. Chapter 195 Attack and Retreat. The information sent by Team 1 made the people in the cave tense. Lao Jin rushed out immediately and ordered 3 team members to escort the hostages out in the channel. The others immediately went to Team 1 to support and find out what was going on. Because just now, the voice that Team 1 said the news was the voice of the team leader of Camp 3 who came to support. Zhang Feng's voice never appeared from beginning to end. What happened there? Who attacked Team 1, and why didn't Zhang Feng command the battle? Everyone rushed out like crazy. Yang Mu also turned his exoskeleton around, but suddenly thought of something. He quickly reached out and opened the subspace necklace in his hand, put the box full of Yaodi bullets on the ground in it, and then ran out quickly. Just after running out of the cave, Yang Mu heard a series of explosions, and at the same time, there were continuous screams of missiles, and in it, there were also human voices, making a mess. And the sound of the missiles, Yang Mu immediately realized that it was not from the Intervention Legion. The missile loading capacity of the mechanical exoskeleton cannot reach such a density, and the power of the explosion is too great. Could it be that the enemy's ambush brought heavy firepower from somewhere? This was almost the first thought that came to Yang Mu's mind. At this time, the communication channel was also in chaos. Yang Mu tried to contact Quinn through the private channel, but he couldn't get in touch with him. No, I have to get out immediately. Yang Mu's heart tightened, and the expression on his face became a little anxious. He gritted his teeth, manipulated the mechanical exoskeleton to grab a thicker iron cover next to him, and then found a direction of the shed and slammed into it. At the same time, on the right wing outside the mine, on a small hillside, the place where a team used as a shelter for a feint attack was now the center of the war. And on that piece of land, under the dense light of bullets and the light of the explosion, 3 tall objects on both sides of the hillside were illuminated. They were mechas, 3 rough-shaped mechas with mottled rust. But even if the appearance of the mecha is unbearable, in front of the intervention corps wearing mechanical exoskeletons and whose strongest firepower is only burning armor-piercing bullets, such a thing is like a magic weapon, and it is unstoppable. Not only that, around the hillside, dozens of people appeared at some point, holding rifles and shooting at bandits on the hillside. They are gradually eroding the first squad in crisis. On the hillside, a team of sergeants are struggling to resist, and the hot weapons in their hands are pouring firepower, but on this hillside, there are still many people falling down. Quinn is dragging Zhang Feng towards a crater on the side. The self-reactive machine gun on the shoulder of the mechanical exoskeleton has been firing automatically, suppressing the bandits who want to climb up. At this moment, Quinn's movements are a little stiff, and the expression on his face is abnormally ferocious and pale. Just before, when he and others were suppressing the dozen people in the opponent's mine with sufficient firepower, a sudden change occurred. Behind everyone, 3 mechas suddenly appeared and changed the situation. The 7 or 8 meters, 10 meters high mechas poured powerful firepower on the position. In just the first wave, the enemy caused heavy losses to them. Zhang Feng was also blown away by a missile. Zhang Feng fell to the ground with his hind legs broken, and his life or death was unknown. The task given to Quinn by the captain was to take Zhang Feng away. Quinn claimed to be a top student of the military academy. He had seen the cruelest scenes and experienced the most difficult survival. He also confidently believed that he could easily look at blood and life and death under the flames of war. However, when the blood really dripped on his face, when his teammates in front of him screamed in pain while holding their broken limbs, Quinn's heart trembled. It was as if someone pinched his heart hard, and then his whole soul was filled with fear. This is why, the moment before, he and others were still on the side of victory, but the next moment, his comrades around him died one by one. Quinn was filled with resentment and anger, but more of it was fear. The bloody scene made the 19-year-old boy look dazed. He could only passively execute the orders given to him by others and deal with the situation in front of him in a panic. Just as Quinn pulled Zhang Feng into the crater, a figure suddenly jumped up. It was a man wrapped in gray ragged linen clothes, with a black mask on his face, leaving only a pair of murderous eyes. He saw Quinn and raised the muzzle in his hand. Quinn's face was extremely panicked, and he hurriedly looked for his rifle, but found that he had thrown the gun on the ground when he just saved Zhang Feng. The bullets of the automatic machine gun were also used up. At this moment, Quinn was like a lamb to be slaughtered. Quinn, who looked up with his eyes wide open, looked at the muzzle of the other party pointing directly at him, and suddenly felt very unwilling. He had a lot of martial arts, but he couldn't use them at all. Bang! A gunshot rang out, and Quinn involuntarily turned his head and closed his eyes. He breathed heavily, but found that he didn't seem to have any pain on his body. Quinn opened his eyes again, but saw that the gangster standing on the edge of the crater fell down stiffly, and Yang Mu's voice rang in Quinn's channel. Quinn! Hold on. The mecha is coming soon. Yang Mu's voice was like a dose of cardiotonic, which directly shocked Quinn's spirit. He suddenly threw away the corpse on him and looked around. The next moment, the mechanical exoskeleton operated by Yang Mu appeared at the edge of the crater. Quinn raised his head, but saw that Yang Mu's face was full of sweat. The mechanical exoskeleton on his body was being used violently, and the heat sink was red and emitting wisps of white steam. Seeing that Quinn was fine, Yang Mu breathed a sigh of relief. When he rushed out of the shed, Yang Mu, who put down the iron cover, immediately saw the 3 mechas on the hillside not far away. Yang Mu couldn't identify the models of the 3 mechas. The modified appearance looked particularly messy, but the attack power was strong. Missiles kept flying out of the mechas and then hit the ground, bursting with bright flames. The situation was worse than he expected. Yang Mu manipulated the mechanical exoskeleton without thinking and ran there with all his strength. In the academy, Professor Long Lai's violent use method began to show results. The forward 2 mechanical exoskeleton worn by Yang Mu was running at full power, carrying Yang Mu to jump forward with big strides. The mechanical exoskeleton advanced rapidly with the help of stones everywhere. In just a moment, Yang Mu surpassed all the members of the second team, who went to support and walked in the front. But this was only the first step. In front of Yang Mu, the bandits holding rifles immediately opened fire. Yang Mu was unable to dodge and was hit by several shots from the opponent's firepower. After the attack, Yang Mu, who was hiding behind the stone, also made a surprising discovery. Because those bullets, each one went directly through the skeleton of the mechanical exoskeleton. This kind of allo-mechanical skeleton is not so easy to be penetrated by ordinary bullets. It was not until Yang Mu saw a bullet falling on the ground, shining with a bright silver light, that Yang Mu was surprised to realize that this was a Yaoti bullet that had been made. These people in front of him were actually using this precious metal bullet in this way. The thought of surprise flashed through Yang Mu's mind, but Yang Mu was more worried about the situation of Team 1. How long can they hold out under such bullet attacks? Yang Mu, who was determined in his heart, no longer used stones as cover. He took out a few grenades, tied them to the rope of the mechanical arm, and then shot it out. The hook on the rope hooked a stone, and Yang Mu used the mechanical arm to swing it violently. The whole stone was thrown out with a rope, and Yang Mu quickly took the rifle in his hand and fired violently. The grenade hooked in the stone and tied with a rope exploded in midair. At the same time, taking this opportunity, Yang Mu once again manipulated the mechanical exoskeleton forward and saw Quinn walking into the crater, and a gangster who was already standing there. Yang Mu fired without hesitation, then climbed up the hillside and saw that Quinn was safe and sound. With a sigh of relief, Yang Mu suddenly heard a sound in the sky. Yang Mu looked up and saw two beams of red light streaking across the sky. It was the emergency mecha of the two people, falling here. Everyone listen to me, give up the E31 and E32 areas, and take everyone to retreat from the D31, D32, and C32 directions. We will cover you. Yang Mu told Quinn the retreat route he had planned in his mind before, and Quinn, who had found his backbone, also had a gleam in his eyes. Chapter 196 Grey Wolf Mecha. When Yang Mu's voice sounded, Lao Jin, who was still attacking the hillside, immediately noticed the changes in the sky and quickly asked the team to change the attack method and help the team on the top of the mountain to retreat. At this time, several vehicles drove over in the distance, and the shouts of the team members came from the channel. They were the vehicles that had returned to the camp. Zhang Feng asked them to come over before the attack began, and now they came to reinforce. Yang Mu quickly dealt with the two bandits who climbed up next to the bomb crater, and jumped into the bomb crater before the opponent's mechas saw him. Yang Mu, what should we do with Zhang Feng? Quinn tried his best to calm his emotions and asked Yang Mu. Yang Mu looked down at Zhang Feng, who was still unconscious. His legs were stained with blood, but at this moment they were bandaged with medical dressings, and the gel was quickly stopping the blood in the wound. Yang Mu frowned. He didn't expect Zhang Feng to be injured, and he was injured so badly. The gunfire on the top of the mountain not far away became more and more frequent. That was because the team retreated, and the enemy's firepower could combine attacks faster. The situation was critical, and Yang Mu could not afford to think too much. He untied Zhang Feng's mechanical exoskeleton and lifted Zhang Feng up. Yang Mu, what are you doing? I don't care about that. Take him down first, and I'll stop those people first. How to do this? Just take him down, Yang Mu said loudly, and there was really no time to explain. At this moment, there was a burst of sound above everyone's head. The two red lights in the sky had arrived. The sound just now was the delivery cabin carrying the mecha being ejected and decelerated rapidly. Yang Mu recognized this cylindrical delivery cabin at a glance. This is a specially designed delivery cabin that can ensure that the empty mecha in it reaches the ground smoothly. It is not like the previous space mecha delivery. The original one was that the driver entered the mecha before delivery, and the driver could open it from the delivery cabin when it was a few hundred meters away from the ground, so that the mecha could quickly launch an attack when it landed on the ground. Two huge cylinders hit the designated E31 and E32 locations hard. The ground shook instantly, picking up smoke and countless stones. Yang Mu and Quinn quickly used mechanical exoskeletons to protect the unconscious Zhang Feng. A moment later, Yang Mu was the first to stand out from the crater. Quinn, wait until I start the mecha before you come out. Yang Mu shouted this sentence, and then looked at the delivery cabin that was only 100 meters away from him. The delivery cabin, which was more than 10 meters high, was still emitting smoke at this moment. It was caused by the high temperature caused by the friction with the air just now. Yang Mu manipulated the mechanical exoskeleton to rush over there without hesitation. At the same time, the bandits not far away also saw the two tall objects that fell not far away. It was just that in their memory, perhaps they were a little confused about what such a thing that fell from the sky was. The gunshots gradually stopped, and they looked at the current situation with some surprise. It was not until a few seconds later that those people seemed to have received some orders. And then they raised their guns again and launched a fierce attack on the two delivery cabins. The three mechas also started to move at this time, walking towards the delivery cabin, and fired another batch of missiles on the mechas. Yang Mu almost advanced under the gunfire, while manipulating the mechanical exoskeleton to constantly borrow strength from various places. At this moment, Yang Mu was like a spirit monkey wandering in the mountains, and he quickly approached the delivery cabin while dodging and moving. The bandits also widened their eyes when they saw Yang Mu's rapid body changes, and they couldn't believe that humans could rely on mechanical exoskeletons to do such movements. but they still used the guns and cannons in their hands to shoot fiercely. Yang Mu also had a moment when he couldn't dodge. His left forearm was grazed by the opponent's bullet, and the wound was burning with pain. Regardless of the pain, Yang Mu gritted his teeth and turned the power of the mechanical exoskeleton to the maximum, because at this moment he had come to the bottom of the delivery cabin, and he just had to climb up. The rope on his body had been knocked out before, and now Yang Mu could only use the arm of his mechanical exoskeleton. The steel hook on it should be able to help climb. Whether it would work depends on Professor Longlai's violent use method. Yang Mu's eyes were firm. He threw away the rifle in his hand, and the front hook of the mechanical arm in his hand was hit down. Yang Mu swung it hard and embedded it into the gap of the delivery cabin. The heat dissipation blades on the mechanical exoskeleton worked at this time. Yang Mu was full of strength, and his feet also kicked it hard. The hook was disengaged, and Yang Mu's figure was a string forward. Yang Mu quickly swung the hook and stuck it in the gap again. There were still sounds of gunfire around, and bullets passed by from time to time. Yang Mu gritted his teeth, kept repeating the action, and walked forward vigorously. Finally, after a long minute, Yang Mu climbed to the middle of the delivery cabin and opened a small hole there for people to enter. Yang Mu ignored the still hot delivery cabin wall at this moment, struggled to take off the mechanical exoskeleton, and got in. This is a special passage that leads directly to the cockpit of the mecha. Yang Mu fell into a small space, realized that he was in the cockpit of the mecha, and stood up immediately. The cockpit of the mecha lit up at this time. Yang Mu quickly put on the combat uniform and holographic helmet next to him and clicked on the mecha screen in front of him. The screen lit up, and the operating system, Somata sensory system, and mecha fire control system were fully online. This is a Grey Wolf mecha, an agile combat mecha, and it is an advanced mecha currently in service for special operations. It seems that Kunlun Academy is still using the most advanced resources to protect the lives and safety of students. Yang Mu was delighted and quickly put his hands and feet into the operating slot of the mecha. The holographic helmet also lit up various data at this time. Not far from the delivery cabin, Quinn was carefully holding Zhang Feng and slowly hiding in the rocks next to him. In the distance, Lao Jin and others were still pouring firepower to block them, and at the same time led their men to send the hostages into the armored vehicle. But they did not leave directly because they were waiting for Zhang Feng. Quinn had already seen Yang Mu enter the delivery cabin. As long as a moment later, as long as the mecha came out, Yang Mu would reverse the whole situation. But at this moment, a figure suddenly appeared not far behind Quinn, and then there was the sound of 2 bullets hitting the surroundings. Quinn turned his head and saw another man in the same hemp clothes. He was the enemy. But at this moment, Quinn had no weapons on him, and he was carrying the unconscious Zhang Feng. The other party was still far away from him, and he was in trouble again. The man also saw Quinn, and his eyes burst into fierce light. He pulled the trigger, but there was no bullet. The next moment, the opponent rushed over with a dagger. Seeing the opponent's actions, Quinn was also furious. He quickly put Zhang Feng down, and then pulled out a dagger and rushed over with a mechanical exoskeleton. The two sides rushed towards each other. At the moment of contact, Quinn jumped up with a mechanical exoskeleton and threw the opponent to the ground. When he let go of the opponent, the dagger in Quinn's hand had already pierced into the opponent's chest. Quinn lay on the ground gasping for breath, and at this time, the delivery cabin where Yang Mu was finally made a sound. At this time, the tall delivery cabin not far away blew out 2 huge streams of white steam, and the hatch on the front of the delivery cabin floated up and slowly opened. At this time, the bandits who were already on high alert were silent, and everyone pointed their guns at the thing that made the noise. The hatch slowly moved to both sides, revealing a slender body inside. The next second, all the bandits opened fire again, and the 3 enemy mechas poured all their firepower into the delivery cabin at the same time. The flames burst out, illuminating Quinn, Lao Jin, and the surprised faces of everyone else. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 197 Military Actions. The whistling missiles and streams of bullets hit the delivery cabin, and everyone's heart was immediately lifted. Quinn quickly ran to Zhang Feng, picked him up, and ran towards the delivery cabin of his mecha. The sound of rifles and the explosion of missiles filled the whole place, but Quinn didn't think too much, just hoped that he could get to the location of the mecha faster. As long as he could send Zhang Feng out as soon as possible, he could help Yang Mu. At Yang Mu's place, the smoke and dust brought by the explosion gradually dissipated, and the lights of the 3 enemy mechas illuminated the location of the delivery cabin, and gradually saw the situation inside. In the delivery cabin, a gray-brown mecha was still standing in it, the fuselage was still intact, but there was no movement. When these people were a little confused, several holes opened on the Grey Wolf mecha, and 7 or 8 missiles flew out from the shoulders, whistling towards the bandits. The other side panicked and fired back fiercely again. At this time, a sound was heard, and the Grey Wolf mecha started to move at this moment, stepping out of the delivery cabin. The brand new body moved forward steadily with a fierce momentum. Yang Mu's holographic helmet showed the situation in front of him at this moment. Looking at the 3 mechas in front of him and the bandits below, Yang Mu raised his right hand and quickly pulled out a rifle from the weapon rack behind the mecha. The explosion just now did not actually cause any substantial damage to Yang Mu, because when he saw the missile coming, Yang Mu stopped opening the door of the delivery cabin in time, and the shells almost hit the wall of the delivery cabin, and the Grey Wolf mecha inside was not damaged. Quickly locking the enemy in front, Yang Mu fired fiercely with a huge mecha kinetic rifle, and the bullets poured on the position, knocking the opponent to the ground. Once Yang Mu started the battle, he was required to kill the opponent in the shortest possible time. The rifle in his hand had used up all the bullets. There was no time to change the ammunition. Yang Mu immediately put the gun back on the weapon rack and fired 2 more small missiles on the mecha. Taking advantage of the somewhat chaotic situation created by himself at this moment, Yang Mu manipulated the arm of the mecha to draw out a broad knife from behind. This is the most different thing about this type of special mecha. It is agile and has strong close combat capabilities. The broad knife drawn by the right hand is a standard puteo, with a long handle and a thick blade. The right angle tip can make it easier to cut into the opponent's mecha. The 3 nameless mechas of the opponent are already in front of Yang Mu. Yang Mu quickly picked out a knife flower with a broad knife in his hand, stepped forward with a big step, and swung the knife down fiercely. Yang Mu's movements were quick, and the previous attack brought considerable casualties and confusion to the opponent. At this moment, when the knife flashed, the driver in the opponent's cockpit had not yet reacted, and Yang Mu's attack had already arrived. The broadsword cut deeply into the opponent's fuselage, sparks burst out, Yang Mu stepped forward and pushed the opponent away. A huge movement sounded on the top of the mountain, and the bandits on foot retreated crying, while the remaining 2 mechas rushed up to fight Yang Mu's mecha. The 3 mechas were not far from each other, and Yang Mu was unable to open up the attack distance again, so he could only resist the attack of 2 mechas alone. At this time, another delivery cabin not far away opened, and a Grey Wolf appeared. Quinn had entered it and started the mecha. Yang Mu, I'll help you, Quinn's voice came from the mecha channel. Where's Zhang Feng? Yang Mu swung the 2 people in front of him away and asked Quinn quickly. Someone has just taken him down, Lao Jin and the others have left first, Quinn shouted in the channel, and at the same time, the mecha rifle in his hand fired, helping Yang Mu alleviate the current situation, and then rushed up. The 3 enemy mechas also stood up again at this time, and Yang Mu also distanced himself from them. You deal with the one on the left, and I'll take care of the remaining 2. Yang Mu stared at the mecha in front of him and said to Quinn. Quinn said him, and also drew out a broadsword on his body, and rushed directly to another mecha. The broadsword in Yang Mu's hand changed its position again, and the engine behind him accelerated, and rushed forward again with the huge body of the mecha. With a turn, Yang Mu used the fuselage to swing away the opponent's mecha that had been injured by him, and then the broadsword in his hand slashed diagonally, directly splitting the chest armor of another mecha of the opponent. Sparks flew, and explosions occurred repeatedly. The battle between the mechas was decided in a moment. Yang Mu did not stop his movements, and manipulated the mecha to move forward again, holding the broadsword in his hand high, and the mecha leaped up, and once again chopped the wound of the already damaged mecha. The mecha couldn't hold on this time. Yang Mu's blade was unstoppable, cutting deeply into the opponent's cockpit until the opponent's mecha stopped struggling. At this time, Quinn, who was standing by, also ended the battle and was pulling out a broadsword from the cockpit of the opponent's mecha. These damn guys, Quinn seemed to have vented his anger and kicked the mecha in front of him hard, venting his emotions. Okay, let's go and see what's going on over there with Lao Jin. Yang Mu stopped the other party's actions and said. At this moment, the threat of the mine had been basically resolved by Yang Mu and Quinn in an instant. Only some bandits with rifles were left fleeing into the distance, and it was not worth chasing them. The most urgent thing was to go and see the situation of Zhang Feng and others. This battle went wrong, and it was estimated that there would be heavy losses. Quinn also nodded, turned around, and was about to go with Yang Mu to the direction of the town of Chavelin. At this moment, an alarm suddenly sounded in the holographic helmets of the two people, and the radar showed that there was an attack behind them. Be careful, Yang Mu pulled Quinn's mech down almost immediately, and at that moment, 3 missiles shot from behind Yang Mu whizzed past and hit the workshed in the mine. The flames of the explosion lit up again, and the mine was instantly destroyed. In Yang Mu's holographic helmet, dozens of small dots appeared behind the mech. What's going on? They have reinforcements, Quinn stood up again and said in surprise. It seemed that he had discovered this situation. Yang Mu turned around and looked over while operating the mech. In the mountains in the distance, dozens of figures were rising and falling, coming towards this side, and they all looked like mechas. However, the models of these mechas can be seen, and the intelligent system of the Grey Wolf mech has fed back the search results. This is the Führer mech commonly equipped by the military of Mokostar, a mech with slightly weaker overall strength. The military came so quickly, but why did they attack him and others just now? Yang Mu was full of questions, but at this moment, the previously saved Intervention Corps communication channel heard Lao Jin's voice. Yang Mu, Quinn, where are you? We were ambushed in the town of Chavelin, and the military mechas attacked us. Lao Jin's words rang out, and Yang Mu and Quinn were shocked, and suddenly there was a fire in the direction of Chavelin. Yang Mu, what's going on now? Quinn shouted. How should I know? Yang Mu was also confused, and at this moment, the military mechas of Mokostar had appeared on a hill not far away, and fired missiles at Yang Mu and Quinn's mechas again. Chapter 198, Iron Bullet. Yang Mu and Quinn dodged the missile attack again. At this time, Lao Jin also spoke loudly in the channel. It was General Ant, the warlord of Mokostar, who rebelled and joined the rebels to attack the Intervention Corps outpost in the Northern Hemisphere. There is no news about the Intervention Corps headquarters. The warlord's army rebelled, and the Intervention Corps of the entire planet was hit at the same time. This result seems to explain many things, including why the dozen or so Fear mechas in front of them attacked Yang Mu. Perhaps it was the appearance of these two mechas falling from the sky that made them regard this as a huge threat. Yang Mu rolled over in the mountains, and at the same time, he put away the broadsword with his backhand and drew out his rifle. Go to Lao Jin and help them leave Chavelin. Yang Mu quickly analyzed the current situation and said to Quinn. Now Lao Jin and others are still in the town of Chavelin. Their team has suffered heavy casualties. There is no heavy weapon assistance, and they are blocked by the opponent's mechas. Although they can use the town's buildings as a barrier, they will not be able to hold on for long. Let them escape, and then he can get out of the way to deal with the mechas in front of him. The terrors in front of him are only second-generation mechas. The performance of this mecha is better than his third-generation and a half Grey Wolf mecha. Yang Mu believes that as long as he and Quinn are careful, they can completely mediate with the other party. Quinn heard Yang Mu's words and responded quickly. He manipulated the mecha to quickly leave the original place. The entire mecha fired a wave of smoke bombs while moving, and at the same time turned off the external light source of the mecha, and quickly went towards the direction of the town of Chavelin. More than a dozen terrors also moved immediately, trying to strangle Yang Mu and Quinn here. Yang Mu turned around, replaced a rifle in his hand with the grenades, and fired a few shots in the direction of the opponent. The explosion sounded, and the opponent also fired back fiercely. Yang Mu quickly turned around during this gap and ran towards Quinn. The bullet beams of the opponent's mecha rifles passed by from time to time. After a click, a red prompt suddenly appeared on Yang Mu's holographic helmet. The armor of the mecha was attacked, and the integrity is 95%. The sudden message surprised Yang Mu. He immediately found that a small piece of the rear armor on the right leg of his mecha was cut off. Although the parts were not damaged, the entire rear leg armor suffered a considerable blow. The opponent was just an ordinary mecha. How could it have such a strong attack power? Yang Mu was very shocked. He didn't expect that his mecha would be damaged before he had a head-on confrontation with the opponent. The special armor of the Grey Wolf mecha should be able to withstand several attacks from the opponent's rifle bullets, but why did it cause such damage with just one bullet? Yang Mu's heart was full of questions, And at this time, Quinn, who was walking in front, also raised the same question. Yang Mu, those mechas are weird. How can the attack power be so high? The mecha armor has been damaged. Yang Mu frowned tightly. He had no way of knowing the reason for all this, so he could only shout at Quinn in the channel. Fire another smoke bomb. Disrupt them. The two fired several more smoke bombs the next moment. The short-lived smoke bombs created a large area covered by smoke. Yang Mu and Quinn also stopped and tangled with the mecha behind them and left quickly. At the same time, in a corner of the town of Chavalin, the surrounding area was already blazing with flames. The tranquility of the town at night was also broken by the sound of explosions. The whole town was filled with screams and gunfire. Lao Jin fired a missile from the launch tube in his hand, then lowered his head and leaned against a wall, careful of the shock wave caused by the explosion. The mechanical exoskeleton on his body can only help him prolong the combat time, but lacks effective protection. The explosion sounded immediately not far away. A mecha a few dozen meters away from Lao Jin was attacked by a missile at the waist, but the armor on it blocked the attack of the missile. The shock wave of the explosion blew off the roofs of the surrounding houses and raised countless sand and stones. Just 5 minutes ago, the intervention corps team, which had just entered a corner of the town of Chavalin, was suddenly attacked by 2 missiles. An off-road vehicle was overturned. At the same time, on the only way back to the camp in the town, 3 camouflage mechas stood up and launched a fierce attack on the entire convoy under the cover of the surrounding buildings. Lao Jin quickly asked everyone to stay away from the vehicles and took the wounded and hostages to hide in the surrounding buildings. But even so, the sudden attack has caused considerable losses to the convoy. Dozens of bodies are now lying on the streets, including sergeants of the intervention corps, hostages in the mine, and ordinary people affected by the war. At the same time, Lao Jin received a communication from Camp Number 3. They were attacked, and they also brought Lao Jin in extremely shocking news. The largest warlord on Moko Star rebelled and joined forces with the rebels to try to rule Moko Star. Intervention corps and local troops in various places were attacked. As for the reason, the other party didn't know, but Lao Jin at least understood that his failure was not a momentary mistake or a trap set by the other party, but a trap that the other party had already set up. The other party wanted to take this opportunity to eliminate him and others. But it's not that simple to eliminate him and others so easily. Lao Jin's face was ferocious at this moment, and he was very angry at these guys who wanted to kill him and others. "Captain, what should we do now?" The little mustache shook the sand on his helmet and asked Lao Jin. Wait for Yang Mu and Quinn to come, their mechas can help us get out." Lao Jin reloaded a missile into the launch tube. "Now our mission is to reduce casualties and wait for them to come." So saying, Lao Jin stood up, turned around with the launch tube, and stuck it out of the wall again. But at this moment, Lao Jin's eyes widened, because not far away from him, a black hole was also aimed at his direction. "Missiles! Dodge!" Old Jin shouted loudly, and pulled the trigger in his hand at the same time. A huge recoil came, and after the heat wave, Old Jin saw the missiles flying towards him. Several soldiers in the corner rushed to the side quickly, and Old Jin threw away the rocket launcher in his hand, kicked his feet hard, and fell to the side. At this time, the piercing sound of gunfire came. And the explosion of missiles also sounded at the same time, accompanied by a buzzing sound, and a spark suddenly bloomed in the sky. "Quinn, lead them to break through from the left, I will attract them." Yang Mu's voice sounded in Old Jin's headphones at this time, like the sound of nature. Old Jin turned over and raised his head, only to see an 8 or 9 meter mecha standing 3 or 4 meters in front of him, holding a rifle in his right hand and a broad knife with a cold light in his left hand, which was slowly trembling and buzzing at this moment. Yang Mu and Quinn rushed over at the fastest speed. Yang Mu stood in front of the Führer mech, the broadsword in his left hand still swaying. Just now, Yang Mu, who had rushed over, also saw the missile launched by the other side. While Yang Mu was manipulating the mech to move forward at full speed, he pulled out a broadsword on his back and was about to chop the missile. But at the moment when the missile and the broadsword came into contact, his broadsword could not bear it, the blade bent, and the missile rubbed the blade and flew into the sky and exploded. The titanium alloy blade was actually unable to split an ordinary missile. Instead, the broadsword was bent and suffered a setback. Yang Mu's doubts and shocks in his heart increased, and he was eager to take a good look at what kind of warhead it was. But the mech in front of him had already launched an attack. Yang Mu manipulated the mech to move, and at the same time raised the rifle in his right hand to fire back. There was a snapping sound, and the firepower of the two Fear mechas of the other side hit Yang Mu's mech, and the red note appeared again in Yang Mu's holographic helmet. The armor of the mecha has been attacked, and the integrity is 78%. In just a moment, his mecha was seriously damaged. At this moment, Yang Mu suddenly saw the bullet hole on the rifle in his hand. Inside, there was a twisted bullet as thick as 2 fingers. The bright silver light seemed familiar. This is a bullet made of shiny iron. Chapter 199 Stopping the Enemy. Yang Mu's scalp went numb when he knew all this. This material, which was considered extremely precious in his previous life, is now so commonly used on this remote planet. These bullets are as common as stones on the ground. He found this kind of thing in the mine. The rifle bullets of the bandits who were probably rebels used this kind of bullets. The rifle bullets of these guys in front of him also used JOD bullets. It is estimated that the bullet of the missile that just flew away also used JOD bullets. It must be. Yang Mu gritted his teeth and quickly shuttled between the buildings, deftly avoiding several attacks. At the same time, he fired back with a rifle in his hand and hit the opponent's mecha. But fortunately, the opponent seemed to have only strengthened the weapon, and other parts of the mecha had not been changed. In this case, he still had a chance. Yang Mu quickly came up with a new way. He put the already worn-out rifle in his hand back on the weapon rack and changed the broadsword in his left hand to his right hand. After firing the last batch of missiles from the mecha, Yang Mu seized this opportunity and attacked again, holding the longsword in his hand diagonally. The engines behind the mecha were all deployed, blue flames splashed out, and the entire fuselage broke through the house made of lois in front of it and rushed towards the closest terrorist mecha. The opponent panicked and blew up the missiles fired by Yang Mu, and then saw Yang Mu's mecha rushing towards him. The mecha driver immediately controlled the mecha to retreat and reached for the weapon behind him. But Yang Mu's attack had already arrived. This was Yang Mu's most common tactic, to create as much trouble as possible for the opponent, and then take this opportunity to rush to the opponent and knock him down with the fastest and fiercest attack. As expected, before the opponent's mecha could draw out its weapon, Yang Mu's broadsword rotated and smashed into the opponent's cockpit. The two mechas collided with each other, and the surrounding houses collapsed like pieces of paper as the two mechas moved. The broadsword with a cold light had already half sunk into the chest of the Fear mecha. Yang Mu stood still and pulled out his weapon with all his strength. At this time, a missile whistled towards him. The alarm sounded in the holographic helmet. Yang Mu tried to dodge, but the distance between the two sides was too short. The missile finally exploded at the shoulder armor of the Grey Wolf mecha. The huge vibration was felt by Yang Mu in the cockpit. The armor of the mecha was attacked, and the integrity was 68%. Seeing the data displayed in the holographic helmet, the left shoulder armor of the mecha was almost completely scrapped, the auxiliary engine next to the main engine was scrapped, and the integrity of the entire mecha armor also dropped rapidly by 10%. The attack power of the opponent's missile was too terrible. Yang Mu was anxiously thinking about how to deal with it, but when he saw the missile head of the opponent popping out from behind again, Yang Mu made up his mind. He used his left hand to directly drag the opponent's mecha and block it in front of him. The attack came again, explosions sounded, and fire lit up behind the terrorist that Yang Mu was holding. Yang Mu lifted the mecha and steadily pushed it forward. The tip of the broadsword in his right hand fell diagonally on the ground, and he held the handle and moved forward step by step. The opponent seemed to be a little panicked by Yang Mu's move, or perhaps because the death of his companion brought him too much anxiety. He hurriedly fired the remaining 2 missiles and then pulled out the scimitar behind him. 2 explosions sounded again. The front of the terrorist mecha in Yang Mu's hand could even see the shrapnel embedded in it. Yang Mu threw it aside. When the terrorist fell to one side, the intact engines behind Yang Mu's mecha all started. When the opponent saw the head and chest armor of the Grey Wolf mecha, Yang Mu's mecha took a big step forward again. The opponent quickly blocked the scimitar in front of him. Yang Mu rushed over quickly and suddenly twisted the body of the mecha to the left when he was 3 or 4 meters away from the opponent. At this time, the broadsword in his right hand, which was dragging on the ground, was swung up, and the sharp blade drew an arc and whistled forward. The other driver's eyes widened, but he spit out a mouthful of blood from his mouth. Because in a flash, the broadsword that Yang Mu used to drag the knife had already cut into the belly armor of the other mecha, just cutting into the cockpit. The Fear mecha immediately knelt down, and then fell in front of Yang Mu. Yang Mu panted heavily, and saw another fear mecha being kicked down by Quinn in the distance, and hurriedly asked in the channel. Are they all out? There was silence in the channel for a moment, and then the voice of the mustache came. We have reached the entrance of the town, and the captain is helping Quinn to stop the enemy. Hearing this news, Yang Mu breathed a sigh of relief, and pulled the knife out of the other mecha with force, then bent down, wanting to see the shrapnel on the previous mecha. At this moment, several landing sounds were heard behind Yang Mu, and the sudden lights behind him shone towards Yang Mu, and along with it, there were screams from countless local residents. Yang Mu turned his head almost reflexively, and shouted in his heart, damn it, he actually forgot about a dozen or so terrorists chasing him. Those mechas were targeting him and Quinn. A few cold sweats immediately flowed down Yang Mu's face. He turned his head and saw the crowd that had merged with the locals to escape from the town entrance. Yang Mu grinned. Yang Mu, are you okay? At this time, Quinn's voice sounded in Yang Mu's helmet, and the voice was a little hurried. Just now, Quinn finally dealt with a mecha in front of him, but his mecha was also damaged by the opponent's bullets. Quinn, go to the town entrance. Yang Mu spoke to Quinn again, and quickly retreated the mecha. Yang Mu. Quinn. You can't stop it, go, leave here. At this time, Lao Jin's voice sounded again in the channel, extremely anxious. Quinn, as if he had not heard Lao Jin's order, silently controlled the mecha and stood at the edge of the town entrance. Two Grey Wolf mechas stood firmly in front of more than a dozen mechas in the night illuminated by lights. Captain Lao Jin, run away quickly. Don't go to the camp. Go to the place you have planned to escape, that valley. Yang Mu swung the scimitar he had just picked up in his left hand, and the broadsword in his right hand that had already been slightly bent. If you hide there, we will naturally find a way to get out. Let's go, Captain, take everyone with you. Yang Mu and I are here. I guarantee that none of them can get through. The voices of Yang Mu and Quinn rang in the headsets of the sergeants, and everyone turned around and looked at the two mechas not far away with their backs to them. Dozens of mecha lights shone on the two somewhat broken mechas, shining brightly. This is Yang Mu and Quinn, who once again stood in front of the sergeants of the intervention corps in less than an hour. Chapter 200. The situation takes a turn. On a turbulent night, the town was ablaze with flames, and the surrounding screams and explosions resounded through the world. At the entrance of the town in the valley, two scarred mechas were standing there, holding weapons flashing with cold light in their hands, facing straight ahead. Not far in front of them, there stood 12 camouflaged fear mechas, each holding a rifle in its hand, aiming at the two mechas driven by Yang Mu and Quinn. Quinn, listen to me. Looking at the mechas in front of him, Yang Mu spoke to Quinn. When it starts, go over from both sides and close the distance first. Quinn also immediately agreed calmly, not knowing whether he understood what Yang Mu meant. From the battle with the two fear mechas just now, Yang Mu could tell that the mechas in front of him only had enhanced weapons, but did not strengthen the body itself. Perhaps it was because they did not master the cutting-edge technology of how to use Yago iron to integrate other metals, so they could only simply use pure Yago iron to make warheads to increase the power. The opponent's long-range thermal weapons are so powerful now, so at this moment, Yang Mu and Quinn have to rely on the excellent agility of the Grey Wolf mecha itself, get close to the opponent, and resolve the battle with close combat. Although it is a very risky action to fight 2 against 12, Yang Mu believes that this is much better than facing the opponent's attack directly. Without saying a word, Yang Mu and Quinn's mechas crouched down a little, and the engines behind them began to spray blue flames. The opponent immediately noticed this situation and quickly raised the muzzle. At the moment when the opponent launched the attack, Yang Mu and Quinn's mechas moved at the same time, dodging the opponent's bullets from both sides and quickly approaching these mechas. The sound of bullets and the whistling of missiles rang again, and the whole town was shattered in such an attack, and Yang Mu and Quinn's mechas also moved forward steadily in this chaos. Dodging the opponent's attack deftly, the entire Grey Wolf mecha moved forward with great force. At this moment, Yang Mu crossed the distance of 100 meters between the two sides, raised the broadsword in his hand high, and was about to chop at one of the opponent's mechas. At this time, the mecha also stopped firing, pulled out a scimitar from behind, and dangerously picked up Yang Mu's mecha. Yang Mu had to evade the opponent's attack, but his broadsword also left a deep scratch on the opponent's chest armor, but unfortunately it was not a fatal blow. Yang Mu quickly twisted his body and moved his body to block the attack from the side. This was another terror, which quickly attacked Yang Mu when Yang Mu appeared. Kicking him away, Yang Mu fiercely stabbed the knife into the arm of the opponent's mecha and removed the opponent's mecha's left hand. At this time, the other 4 mechas of the opponent also quickly surrounded Yang Mu, and several mechas surrounded Yang Mu. On the other side, Quint's situation was similar. The close combat method made the opponent dare not shoot or launch missiles easily, but the opponent also relied on its original numerical advantage to quickly divide and surround Yang Mu and Quinn. At the same time, these people's mecha manipulation technology was not bad. Although they were not as good as Yang Mu in single combat, the attacks of several mechas of the opponent came alternately. And Yang Mu could only respond hastily and could not make a very effective counterattack. Quinn cursed the opponent's meanness in the channel, but Yang Mu seized the opportunity and fired a batch of induced flash bombs on the mecha. The strong flash and smoke filled the mecha fighting field, and Yang Mu finally seized the opportunity to counterattack. Anyway, there were no mechas around that belonged to his teammates, so he didn't care whether they could see it or not. Just cut it. Yang Mu made such a plan in his mind, and the weapon in his hand kept swinging. Taking advantage of the sudden change, he quickly caused a lot of damage to the opponent's mecha. Yang Mu also seized the opportunity to kill one of the opponent's mechas and cut off the head of another mecha. As sparks flew, Quinn, who is not far away, also learned this method immediately. He also fired a batch of guided bombs, using the smoke as a barrier to attack the mecha in front of him fiercely, and finally broke the deadlock. The opponent's mechas were injured or killed one after another. The sudden change made these soldiers panic, but Yang Mu and Quinn's attack became more and more fierce. They used the superior performance of the Grey Wolf mecha to constantly swing and scratch the opponent's mecha. In a blink of an eye, only 8 mechas were left to join the battle, and some of them were still sparking. Yang Mu and Quinn's Grey Wolf mechas also stood together at this time, with their backs to each other and looking at the surrounding mechas. The opponent's mechas were attacked a lot, but Yang Mu and Quinn's mechas were also damaged a lot. The scars on the mechas became more and more, and some of the opponent took the opportunity to shoot or fire, and Yang Mu and Quinn's mechas were more scarred. Energy was good, at least they could hold out for 20 minutes of fighting, but the armor integrity of the 2 mechas had both dropped below 50%, especially Yang Mu's mecha, which had been attacked by missiles before, and because of the siege by the opponent's mechas, 6 or 7 mechas left countless wounds on Yang Mu, and the integrity of the mecha was only 39%. But the battle had to continue. Yang Mu and Quinn did not communicate, but the eyes of both of them were very firm. Now they have only delayed the opponent for 10 minutes. Lao Jin and others will definitely find it difficult to escort a team and the masses into the Yadin landform to hide. Yang Mu and Quinn need to buy more time. But at this time, the opponent suddenly changed. I don't know what happened. 2 of the opponent's mechas suddenly retreated. Quinn and Yang Mu saw this situation and were a little puzzled at first, but at this time the 6 mechas attacked again. Yang Mu and Quinn gritted their teeth and fought, and entangled with the opponent. But at this time, the 2 mechas that withdrew from the battle moved, they turned around and went far away. And that direction was exactly the direction of Lao Jin and others. They actually took Lao Jin and others as their targets. Seeing all this, Yang Mu and Quinn were furious. They never expected that the other party would make such a move at this time. The other party's target was originally themselves, but why did they make such a move? Questions surged in Yang Mu's heart, but before Yang Mu could think about it anymore, the opponent's mecha suddenly fired 4 missiles, dragging a long danger towards the direction of Lao Jin and others. The 4 whistling missiles immediately disrupted the actions of Yang Mu and Quinn. Quinn almost instantly swung away the surrounding mechas. The engine behind the mecha exerted force violently, and the entire mecha briefly took off, crossed the 2 mechas that fired missiles, and went towards the 4 missiles. In the flat wasteland in the distance, a team of people were fleeing in all directions, but the desolate desert was unavoidable. Once such a swift attack arrived, there would be tragic casualties. Yang Mu also quickly broke free from the encirclement of the people around him and turned to look over there. Quinn, who had already rushed out, used the rifle in his hand to blow up 2 missiles, but the remaining 2 were still whistling forward. Quinn, who had no long-range weapons, had no choice but to suddenly make a move that surprised Yang Mu. The flames of all the auxiliary engines on the back of the Grey Wolf mech, which was already advancing forward, suddenly changed from blue to red, and then the light of the main engine also turned red. Quinn, Yang Mu shouted immediately, because he already knew the purpose of Quinn's doing this. He wanted to catch up with the two missiles with the speed of the Grey Wolf mech and stop them with the body of the mech. In the next moment, the Silent Quinn drove the mech forward at a high speed, and the mech, which was moving forward at full speed, finally caught up with the two missiles. The next moment, a huge spark burst out in the sky. Yang Mu opened his eyes wide, his face full of anxiety, and the broadsword fiercely cut off the head of a mech in front of him. Some of the engines behind him that could not support themselves also spewed out hot flames, driving the mech towards Quinn. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone, see you in the next video.